Hey everyone, per your requests, I'm starting Soul Land 5, The Rebirth of Tang San today. My channel isn't monetized, so if you're able to, please support me on PayPal to help me stay active. Thank you. Now, let's get back to the story of Soul Land 5, The Rebirth of Tang San, chapters 1 through 20 of the previous episode. Tang San discovers that his mysterious heaven technique can devour and assimilate the bloodline powers of demons, granting him skills like Leopard Flash and Windblade. However, his cultivation stalls at the peak of the Third Order due to the world's suppressive laws. To break through, he realizes he must absorb the bloodline of a Fourth Order Windwolf. During a bloodline assessment in Windwolf Town, Tang San manipulates his absorbed wind energy to pass alongside 4 other children, Ling Mook Sui and the Wang brothers. Escaping slavery, they become vassals of the Windwolf clan and students of Wang Yanfeng, a Fourth Order human-wolf hybrid. However, Tang San is traumatized when he witnesses the brutal sacrifice of his birth mother and other human women. Suppressing his immense rage, he vows to overthrow the demonic rule and liberate humanity. Under Wang Yanfeng's tutelage, the children begin combat training, preparing for a life-or-death evaluation 3 years away.
Since Wang Yanfeng had only taken one step to evade when Ling Muxue flipped and launched her attack, the distance between them was very close. There was no time for him to escape again. Wang Chao and Wang Xiaolei both exclaimed in surprise at the scene. Then they saw a flash of green light on Wang Yanfeng, and the wind blade that was heading toward his shoulder disappeared into thin air. At the same time, a ray of green light shot out from under his feet, catching the falling Ling Muxue just in time, lifting her back up and stabilizing her stance. Ling Muxue and Appo's wind wolf transformation had already dissipated, and she was panting heavily. The things that had just transpired left her somewhat bewildered, unsure of how to process the fight. However, she could clearly tell that there was a look of approval in Wang Yanfeng and Appo's eyes. Not bad at all. You know there and Appo's a power difference between us, so you concentrated all your strength on that wind blade attack, catching me off guard. That and Appo's using your brain in battle. Well done. Wang Yanfeng could see Ling Muxue and Appo's little scheme. Teacher, you and Appo's amazing. Just now, Ling Muxue and Appo's eyes were filled with astonishment. Wang Yanfeng replied, that was an application of the wind blade. I and Appo's I'll teach it to you when you reach the Third Order. It can only be used when your bloodline is powerful enough. Both Ling Muxue and the Wang siblings couldn't and Appo's helped but look at Wang Yanfeng with deep admiration. Even Tang San was inwardly impressed by what he had just witnessed. Among the powerful humans he had encountered, Zhu Jiesan was the first, and now it was Wang Yanfeng. He could now be sure that Wang Yanfeng and Appo's strength was definitely above Zhu Jiesan and Appo's. Zhu Jiesan had probably been around the Fourth Order in terms of cultivation. Even when heavily injured, he could kill a Third Order wolf demon. However, even though Wang Yanfeng was also at the Fourth Order, his control over the wind element was simply exquisite. Yes, it wasn't an Appo's just a simple wind blade but an actual direct application of the wind element. Tang San hadn't an Appo's seen anything from any wolf demons. Just this level of control made Tang San have a newfound respect for Wang Yanfeng. It required solid mental power and a deep understanding of the wind element. Tang San, it and Appo's your turn, Wang Yanfeng said. Tang San took a few steps forward and seemed lost in thought for a moment before nodding at Wang Yanfeng. Wang Yanfeng smiled slightly. Let and Appo's begin. Tang San's eyes narrowed, and a gleam of green light shot out from his eyes. When Wang Yanfeng saw this, he couldn't and Appo's help but be surprised. For the Wind Wolf clan, the stronger the bloodline, the greater the affinity with the wind element, the more of the wind element they could control, and the more their aura manifested, especially in the form of the green light in their pupils. After only half a month of cultivation, Wang Yanfeng was surprised to find that Tang San and Appo's eyes had strengthened compared to when he first arrived. Tang San had already made his move without waiting for him to overthink. He lifted his right hand, and a wind blade about 3 inches long shot out. Unlike Ling Muxue's, this wind blade didn't and Appo's produce any howling sound as it flew, appearing rather unremarkable as it headed toward Wang Yanfeng. Wang Yanfeng had anticipated that Tang San wouldn't oppose. T actively charge at him, considering that Tang San couldn't oppose. T used the Wind Wolf transformation to enhance his physical strength. Under these circumstances, it would be unwise to charge forward. However, what surprised him was that Tang San and Oppo's Wind Blade didn't oppose. T produced the usual whistle or howl as it passed through the air, which was different from the standard wind blade. Wang Yanfeng remained still, and as the wind blade was about to approach him, he prepared to move and dodge. With his combat experience, he would save energy when facing any opponent. However, the moment his foot shifted, the wind blade suddenly disappeared. Yes, it vanished, and all his vision registered was a momentary blur before the wind blade disappeared into thin air. Why did it disperse? Does he not have enough energy to sustain the wind blade? Impossible. The distance is only 6 meters. Even when Tang San just awakened, he could have hit me with that wind blade. How could it suddenly disappear like that? At that moment, he suddenly sensed a sharp movement right in front of his eyes, and instinctively, a green light burst forth. The green light trembled, and ripples spread from his forehead. Wang Yanfeng instinctively took a step back, but he was truly startled. Yes, Tang San and Oppo's wind blade had struck him. He couldn't oppose. T even track its trajectory, let alone evade it. This silent and invisible wind blade had just slashed across his forehead. This attack would have definitely drawn blood if he didn't have his own wind wolf energy protecting him. How is this possible? Wang Yanfeng and Oppo's expression changed as he looked at Tang San. Again, he shouted at Tang San. Tang San raised his left hand, and another wind blade shot out. It appeared to be the same wind blade as before, still soundless. The two were very close to each other. As Tang San released his wind blade in that same instant, a wind blade shot out from Wang Yanfeng and Oppo's hand incredibly fast, heading straight for Tang San and Oppo's wind blade. It was noticeably larger and aimed to extinguish Tang San and Oppo's wind blade directly. However, a strange scene unfolded. Tang San and Oppo's wind blade in midair drew a graceful arc, almost at the last moment, evading Wang Yanfeng and Oppo's wind blade and letting it strike the ground. Then in Wang Yanfeng and Oppo's sight, that wind blade disappeared once again. With no hesitation, Wang Yanfeng immediately summoned a green-lit whirlwind around himself. In the blink of an eye, the green light flashed once more, and Tang San's wind blade reappeared behind Wang Yanfeng's back, then dissipated when it made contact with the whirlwind. Wang Yanfeng and Oppo's face was now filled with nothing but astonishment. He was even doubting himself. He had always assumed that when it came to fine control of the wind element, there might be no one in the entire Wind Wolf town who could compare to him. Not even the Wind Wolf Lord could match his skills in this regard. The only exception was the enigmatic High Priest, who possessed much greater bloodline power. However, he had never imagined that right before his eyes, a young boy, only 8 years old, would display such exquisite mastery of the wind blade. It could have been considered a coincidence if it had happened only once. But twice in a row? Both instances were executed silently, and with such precision that the wind blade vanished right before his eyes. It was nothing short of a miracle. Little did he know that in the world where Tang San had lived his first life, he had survived until the age of 28 in a martial arts sect known as Tang Sect. The Tang Sect excelled in hidden weapons and poison. Tang San himself had an almost fanatical love for hidden weapons, which led him to secretly learn the sect and Oppo's innermost arts, including the 6 supreme skills from the inner sect: Mysterious Heaven Technique, Mysterious Jade Hands, Controlling Crane Catching Dragon, Purple Demon Eyes, Ghost Shadow Perplexing Track, and Hidden Weapon 100 Separation. These 6 supreme skills made Tang San a formidable master of hidden weapons and combat. Tang San learned these 6 supreme skills in his first life and significantly elevated them. After the truth came to light, he chose to leave everything behind and ended his life by jumping off a cliff to prove his honor. This decision led to his first transmigration experience. Through this transmigration, he found himself in the Douluo continent. He ultimately reached godhood there, drawing upon the foundation of the Tang Sect and Oppo's supreme skills and the unique power of that world known as the martial soul. Tang San achieved godhood and became a legendary god king in that world. Among these 6 supreme Tang sect skills, the first 5 could be considered as foundational in order to be able to use the ultimate skill set, Hidden Weapon 100 Separation. Tang sect and Appo's hidden weapons could be divided into 2 main categories. One relied on intricate craftsmanship and mechanical design to be effective. The other depended on techniques and the practitioner and Appo's profound inner power in order to be deployed. In his previous life on the Douluo continent, Tang San and Appo's father was a blacksmith and a secret master of the hammer. Tang San learned the art of blacksmithing from him. With a fresh start in that world, he created many astonishing mechanical hidden weapons. Armed with his divine consciousness and memories from his previous life, Tang San possessed far more experience than his time on this continent suggested. Moreover, since he had no opportunity to forge weapons here, he focused on cultivating his hidden weapon techniques. When he first gained the ability to use the wind blade, their power was quite limited. However, with the techniques of the Hidden Weapon 100 Separation set, his years of insights, and the improvement in his spiritual power through the Purple Demon Eyes cultivation, he had already mastered the art of manipulating them. And consuming the Wind Wolf bloodline of a third-order wolf further enhanced the power of his wind blades. In his encounter with Wang Yanfeng, he had already exercised considerable restraint. Otherwise, he could have compressed the wind blade further, unleashing an even more powerful attack. Wang Yanfeng would have found it much more difficult to defend against in that case. Wang Yanfeng looked at him in astonishment, but Tang San remained calm, with a hint of confusion in his expression. Without immediately inquiring further, Wang Yanfeng simply said, "All right, today's practical combat lesson ends here. After you go back, make sure to reflect on the issues you encountered in today's battle. We will have a practical combat class every 3 days from now on. I hope to see some improvement from all of you next time. This is crucial for your success in the assessment when you face real wind wolves 3 years from now." As everyone returned to their rooms, Wang Yanfeng stopped Tang San and led him upstairs. The second floor had 2 rooms, and Tang San had been upstairs before. These 2 rooms belonged to Wang Yanfeng and Qiu Jing respectively. There was also a guest room that he had never entered. What surprised him this time was that Wang Yanfeng opened the door to the guest room and gestured for him to come in. "Come inside with me," Wang Yanfeng said. Tang San followed Wang Yanfeng's instructions and entered the room, trailing behind him. As soon as he stepped inside, his eyebrows raised slightly in surprise. It was an empty-looking room indeed, devoid of any furniture or decorations. However, as soon as he entered, Tang San could clearly sense that the concentration of wind element in this room was significantly higher than outside. While he couldn't easily manipulate his divine consciousness, the presence of that strand of divine consciousness had accelerated his mental growth rate compared to an ordinary person, making his perception much more acute. Soon, Tang San discovered that the source of this rich wind element was actually a couple of interesting-looking rocks placed in the room's 4 corners. It was these minerals that attracted the wind element. Closing the door, Wang Yanfeng's expression became serious. "Tell me, how did you come to control the wind blade?" he asked. Tang San blinked and looked at him. "Teacher." Wang Yanfeng maintained a stern expression, looking at Tang San. "You must explain this clearly as it concerns your life. I need a reasonable explanation. Otherwise, you won't be able to stay here any longer. What's going on with you? I sensed something was amiss right when you awakened." Normally, when a human awakens the wind wolf bloodline, they first undergo a physical transformation that makes them resemble a wind wolf and experience a physical strengthening, and only then can they gradually gather the wind element energy within their bloodline, allowing this power to grow step by step and eventually gaining control over the wind blade innate ability. But there has been no sign of the wind wolf transformation on you until now, yet you can use the wind blade, and it seems like its power is increasing rapidly. Today, you showed a level of control that I simply can't believe is innate. The wind blade is said to come from the bloodline's power. So where does your control come from? I find it hard to believe you were somehow just born with this ability and nobody taught you anything until now. So how did you gain your enlightenment? You need to explain that as well. Wang Yanfeng pressed with a severe tone. Tang San fell silent, lowering his head slightly as if thinking how to explain everything Wang Yanfeng had asked. Wang Yanfeng waited patiently in silence. After a while, Tang San finally spoke slowly. "Teacher, I was awakened a long time ago. It wasn't during the ceremony. I see. When was it? Wang Yanfeng seemed to have anticipated this response. At the age of 6, I awakened by chance, Tang San began. That time I was starving at night, so I went out looking for food. Unknowingly, I wandered to the edge of the village into the woods. There I encountered someone. He grabbed me suddenly and I was terrified. I tried to scream but he covered my mouth. Out of fear, I awakened the power within my bloodline. Pausing momentarily, he continued. That person seemed to sense my awakening. He told me not to scream and then let me go. He checked my body and after that he asked if I wanted to learn from him. I didn't understand anything, not even what learning meant then. Then he explained some things to me and gave me some food. He told me to come to him every night. When I did, he always had food for me. I was always hungry, so I went every day. He kept his promise and started teaching me, and gradually I learned about these things. He also taught me how to control the wind blade. What did he look like? Do you know his name? Wang Yanfeng pressed for more details. Tang San, however, shook his head in bewilderment. He never said that. He told me he would tell me when I grew up. But 3 months ago he disappeared and he still hasn't shown up since. And after that, it was the awakening ceremony. So, he taught you how to control the wind blade. But did he ever explain why you couldn't undergo the wind wolf transformation? Wang Yanfeng continued his line of questioning. Tang San explained. He said that transformation wasn't necessarily good because it would limit you to one kind of demon god transformation. He believed it was better to extract the essence and taught me a special cultivation method. After that, I couldn't transform anymore. He told me that this technique was unique, not meant to be shared, and that if someone learned it without awakening their bloodline, they would die. A technique? One that belongs solely to us humans. Wang Yanfeng's eyes lit up with interest. Tang San replied, I don't know. I only remember that the last time I saw him before leaving, he told me that no matter what I encountered in the future, I should always work for the redemption of humanity. He said that one day humans wouldn't be slaves anymore. Upon hearing these words, Wang Yanfeng suddenly trembled all over. His face displayed a profound shock, and he clenched his fists tightly as if he had been deeply affected and couldn't regain his composure for a long time. Redemption, redemption, he muttered softly, lips pressed together. Tang San could feel the intense emotion in him at this moment. After a long while, Wang Yanfeng's expression finally relaxed. He took a deep breath, stabilized his emotions, and spoke solemnly. Tang San, remember this. What I told you today, don't mention it to anyone, including Mushua and the others. Keep it buried deep in your heart. If anyone asks you where you learned your wind blade technique in the future, you can tell them you learned it from me. Understand? Tang San looked at him and blinked again. Teacher, do you want to learn? I can teach you. That person said anyone can learn as long as they are human. Wang Yanfeng's heart stirred. Today, he was genuinely amazed by Tang San's control of the wind blades on 2 occasions. He believed his own control over the wind element was already incredibly refined, and further improvement seemed challenging. However, the soundless and intermittent wind blades that Tang San had displayed today opened a new door for him. Well, he hesitated momentarily. Can I learn something from my student? Teacher, I think you might not be able to win against me in combat, Tang San suddenly said. Wang Yanfeng was taken aback. He looked at Tang San and saw the earnestness mixed with childlike innocence in his eyes. Tang San nodded and said, That person told me not to reveal my combat strength in front of others easily. I wanted to kill the wolf demons during the sacrificial ceremony that day, but I could sense that I probably couldn't defeat the 2 strongest ones. However, I should be able to handle the ordinary wolf demons. What about me? Wang Yanfeng asked. Your energy level is higher than mine, but when it comes to my shadowless wind blade, I believe you wouldn't be able to match it, Tang San replied. Wang Yanfeng thought for a moment and said, Alright, let and Oppos, have a spar right here and now. If you win, I and Oppos, LL learn how to use the wind blade from you. If you lose, I and Oppos, LL teach you to cultivate the wind element to enhance yourself. How about that? Alright. Tang San nodded immediately. Everything he did today was carefully calculated. There were several primary objectives. Demonstrating his shadowless wind blade to Wang Yanfeng was to make him aware of his abilities, which would make him special in Wang Yanfeng and Appo's eyes. Gaining attention from his teacher would ultimately grant him more freedom in the future. Another reason was that he genuinely wanted to impart some of his abilities to Wang Yanfeng, and by extension to the other four as well. He wants to help them strengthen their abilities as quickly as possible, so that they could pass the assessment and avoid any further tragedies. There was also a more profound significance in mentioning the word redemption. He wanted to gauge Wang Yanfeng and Appo's reaction. Based on Wang Yanfeng and Appo's actions to protect them, he suspected that Wang Yanfeng was aware of the Redemption Society, and that he could even be a member. If that was the case, it would be the best scenario, as it would be advantageous for his future efforts to join the society and seek his reincarnated wife through their assistance. The last point was obviously for his cultivation. When he mentioned that Wang Yanfeng and Appo's strength was and Appo's on par with his own, it was to create an opportunity for himself to absorb a portion of Wang Yanfeng and Appo's Wind Wolf bloodline power and break through to the 4th level of the mysterious heaven technique. Over the past few days, he had carefully considered various methods. He observed the 4th order wind wolves in the town. Launching a sneak attack on a 4th order wind wolf was very risky, as it was challenging to carry it out without making a commotion and exposing himself. After all, with his appearance, it was clear from a mile away that he was a human child. In addition, Tang San's experiment had confirmed that devouring the target's energy wound and Appo's harmed them fundamentally, and achieving the breakthrough by using Wang Yanfeng's energy was indeed the safest option. He also considered the worst-case scenario, of course. What if Wang Yanfeng was in fact a loyal lackey of the Wind Wolf clan? The probability of this happening was extremely low. Even though Wang Yanfeng dared not resist the Wind Wolf clan, based on his attitude and care toward the students, his character seemed trustworthy. To take it a step further, if he were indeed betrayed, it wasn't like he had no solution. He had been suppressing his anger all this time, but if pushed to the limit, he could activate his divine consciousness and simply flatten Wind Wolf Town. After weighing his options for several days, he ultimately concluded that the potential gains from revealing himself outweighed the risks he would face. That was why he had made this choice. Then Wang Yanfeng walked over to a corner and carefully interacted with the rocks that were radiating wind element energy. The next moment, Tang San was astonished to feel a gentle, invisible energy diffusing in the air. It was the wind element. Rich elemental energy enveloped the entire room, as if the room had an inbuilt wind element array. Does something exist here? Tang San and Appo's inner shock was profound. Wang Yanfeng's assets were bewildering. So these things exist in this world as well. It and Appo's safe here. We don't and Appo's need to worry about making too much noise. Come on, show me what you learned from that person. Wang Yanfeng opened up the distance between himself and Tang San, providing more space for the child to use the wind blades. The sparring now was different from the practice combat they had. Wang Yanfeng didn't and Appo's underestimate the 8-year-old child in front of him. His eyes gleamed with determination as his body instantly expanded. Wind Wolf transformation. When humans use the Wind Wolf transformation, their bodies improved drastically. Of course, these improvements would never be at the level of a Wind Wolf of the same order. Nevertheless, after activating the Wind Wolf transformation, Wang Yanfeng and Appo's height exceeded 2 meters in an instant. The wind element around his body became noticeably turbulent, and a green glow surrounded his wolf claws. Even though there was some distance between them, Tang San could still keenly sense the overwhelming pressure emanating from him. Without a doubt, Wang Yanfeng was the strongest opponent he had encountered since arriving in this world. Tang San and Appo's gaze also became intense as he stared at Wang Yanfeng. He crouched slightly with one foot in front of the other. His irises had a faint green glow, and the light also radiated from the corners of his eyes. In the next instant, Tang San moved. He raised both hands simultaneously, unleashing 2 shadowless wind blades, noticeably more prominent than the ones used during their previous spar in the courtyard. Soundlessly, one on the left and one on the right, they carved 2 arcs in space as they headed straight toward Wang Yanfeng. At the same time, Wang Yanfeng also launched his attack. He didn't and Appo's Bother with the wind blades. Tang San and Appo's wind blades had already astonished him, and he knew it would be difficult to evade such attacks. What he relied on to overpower Tang San was simply his much greater strength. He was curious to know if Tang San and Appo's claim of being able to defeat him was arrogance or genuine confidence backed by strength. He wanted to find out for himself. Ignoring the two wind blades, he charged straight at Tang San, closing the distance to prevent Tang San from releasing more wind blades. This was the best strategy. He refrained from using wind blades himself, as he was still concerned about Tang San being unable to withstand them and getting injured. As for the two wind blades that Tang San had unleashed earlier, they flew through the air while Tang San himself retreated backward. The two wind blades struck Wang Yanfeng and Appo's knees. Even though Wang Yanfeng was using wind element energy to protect himself, and his physical strength had significantly increased due to his transformation, he was still tripped by these two wind blades. His charging momentum became somewhat uncontrollable. His heart was filled with astonishment. Not even a second-order wind wolf transformation could produce wind blades like these. Seizing the opportunity while Wang Yanfeng was momentarily out of control, Tang San made a swift move, sidestepping to the side and creating distance. Once again, he released two shadowless wind blades from his hands. Wang Yanfeng took a step forward, and using his wolf claws, he managed to prevent himself from falling. However, the two wind blades had already reached him again, hitting his knees in the exact same spot. This sudden impact caused his movements to cease just as he was about to leap up. Following this, there were two more wind blades. These two wind blades were slightly smaller in size, but as they shot towards him, Wang Yanfeng could sense the threat. They seemed to be more potent than the previous wind blades. Did he compress the energy? Wang Yanfeng instinctively crouched down and clapped his wolf claws together, creating a whirlwind in front of him as a defensive measure. He didn't and Appo's dared to confront the wind blades directly again. But at this moment, a strange scene unfolded. Above the whirlwind in front of Wang Yanfeng, the two wind blades disappeared with a flash of green light. Right away, Wang Yanfeng felt a sharp sense of danger right in front of his eyes. He instinctively raised his arm to protect his face, and an instant later, he felt something stabbing them deeply. It was clear that Tang San and Appo's attack had been aimed at his eyes this time. Tang San and Appo's wind blades were more potent than he had imagined. Forget about the second order, they clearly reached the third order. Such a level of cultivation was something Wang Yanfeng had never anticipated. At just 8 years old, Tang San had already achieved third-order strength. Even though he lacked the physical augmentation from Wind Wolf and Appo's transformation, his control over wind blades was well on par with a regular third-order wolf demon. Wang Yanfeng was astounded. However, astonishment was all he felt. "I'm sorry, kid. I am not at the third order." With a resounding growl, Wang Yanfeng and Appo's aura surged, bathing him in a vivid green radiance that crackled with the essence of the wind. The air around him hummed with the power of elemental force. His wolf-like fur shimmered with an enchanting greenish hue as if the room and Appo's magic had magnified his presence. Now a deep shade of jade, his eyes conveyed his unwavering determination. Wang Yanfeng planted his feet firmly into the floor and surged forward at a ridiculous speed. His arms shielded his vulnerable eyes as he charged straight toward Tang San. Two more wind blades struck him, but this time, they were effortlessly dissipated by the protective wind element surrounding him. Wang Yanfeng had unleashed his full power, his every skill brought to bear in a simple yet determined pursuit. Close the distance and end the battle in his mind, no matter how masterful Tang San and Appo's control over the wind blades was. It wouldn't and Appo's matter as long as the kid couldn't and Appo's break through his defense. Tang San, who could not even transform, would undeniably be defeated in a melee. The room was not very large, and in the next instant Wang Yanfeng would be standing right in front of Tang San. However, Tang San and Appo's lips curled up at that moment, revealing a faint smile. Actually, what he wanted was exactly this: for Wang Yanfeng to come close. In terms of absolute speed, he was no match for Wang Yanfeng, who was at the fourth order. However, when it came to close combat, Tang San was confident in his abilities. No matter how qualified he was, Wang Yanfeng and Appo's combat experience couldn't and Appo's compared to his. After all, he was a former god king who had seen countless battles in his past life. Tang San's toes lightly tapped the ground, and the next instant, his figure flickered like a ghost, miraculously escaping Wang Yanfeng and Appo's frontal lunge. Tang San immediately maneuvered to Wang Yanfeng and Appo's side, crouching down and making use of his small stature to easily dodge Wang Yanfeng and Appo's muscular arm. Then, his right hand shot out like lightning. With fingers that shone like white jade, he smacked Wang Yanfeng and Appo's armpit in a split second. Wang Yanfeng and Appo's body was wrapped in green light, and coupled with his robust physique, he rightfully considered his defenses nearly impenetrable. Still, with this strike, Tang San pinpointed a weak spot. Combined with the power amplification granted by his mysterious jade hand, this weak spot allowed him to easily puncture through Wang Yanfeng and Appo's protective wind element energy and hit him square. The armpit area was a vulnerable spot no matter how strong the one's physique was, and while it was normally easy to defend, it was also a real problem when it was hit. Wang Yanfeng felt an intense pain in his armpit, as if he was stabbed by a needle, and then half of his body went numb. As he was reeling in shock, Tang San and Appo's right hand shot out again, hitting him once more in the armpit, and this time with a powerful punch. Wang Yanfeng and Appo's legs went limp and he slumped to the floor. Tang San leaned in, pressing his shoulder against Wang Yanfeng to prevent him from regaining his balance, and flipped him face down onto the floor. Wang Yanfeng felt a profound weakness in the right half of his body, and he realized that he was unable to exert any power. His heart was filled with shock. He couldn't even figure out how he had been defeated. Everything had happened so fast. Of course, part of it was because he feared hurting Tang San, so he had refrained from using his strongest skill, the wind blades, for a full-scale attack. However, even with that taken into account, the fact of the matter was that Tang San had just knocked Wang Yanfeng down in hand-to-hand combat, leaving him in disbelief. Tang San retreated quickly, but his palm was surrounded by a green light. During the 3 clashes just now, he had silently absorbed some of the 4th-order Wind Wolf bloodline power from Wang Yanfeng using the mysterious heaven technique. Actually, the drain of bloodline power was one of the reasons why Wang Yanfeng felt weak. Even though the absorbed energy was not much, it was still 4th-order energy. Almost immediately, Tang San felt a change in the energy in his body, as if it was boiling. His guess was correct. It seemed he needed a bloodline power of the same attribute, but of a higher level to help him break through. Feeling this change, Tang San retreated to a distance and sat on the ground, panting heavily as if he had exhausted all his strength. In fact, with the deep, rich energy and recovery ability granted by his mysterious heaven technique, he could easily use the wind blades more than a dozen times without any problems. In fact, he could do that while also using the leopard flash. In terms of actual strength, if they were to go all out, Tang San probably had a 60% chance of defeating Wang Yanfeng anyway. The man had been holding back, yes, but so had Tang San. Even though there was a gap in their cultivation levels, Tang San had much more experience and better martial arts skills. In his previous life, it had been relatively easy for him to defeat higher-level opponents. But in this life, he was yet to fully understand the world he was in, so it was difficult for him to get an advantage. Otherwise, he would have become stronger even faster. The pain gradually faded away, and Wang Yanfeng sat up and looked at Tang San with a complex expression in his eyes. He had never imagined that he would lose to an 8-year-old kid one day. But a loss was a loss, and he wooed and Appo's make excuses. "Teacher, I feel a bit tired. Can I go back and rest for a while?" Tang San looked at Wang Yanfeng with a pitiful expression. Wang Yanfeng and Appo's mouth twitched. "Go ahead. Remember what I told you today. Don't Appo's tell anyone else. Otherwise, there will be dire consequences." "Okay, teacher," Tang San hurriedly agreed. Then he stood up and left the room. He wanted to embrace the feeling of a breakthrough and quickly advance his mysterious heaven technique to the 4th order. Of course he was excited. When his cultivation reached the following order, everything would be different. Back in his room, Wang Zhong was already practicing. Tang San was still in a good mood when he climbed into bed. Judging from Wang Yanfeng and Appo's reaction, his judgment was correct. His teacher naturally had his doubts about the whole situation, but he would still protect his student. Considering that Tang San also didn't and Oppos, T mind teaching Wang Yanfeng some of his hidden weapon techniques. What and Oppos s more, there was an unexpected surprise today. The wind elemental array in Wang Yanfeng and Oppos' room on the second floor. This was definitely something that could be used for cultivation. At present, his control over the wind element was based on the imprints granted by the Wind Wolf bloodline, which required continuous absorption to improve. It seemed impossible to control the wind element directly, even if he had enough spiritual energy, since he couldn't and Oppos access it by himself. This was a limitation imposed by the rules of this dimension. To break this rule, according to Wang Yanfeng and Oppos' explanation of the hierarchy in the Phelan world, he would probably have to reach at least the 9th order before he could have an opportunity. Cross-legged, he sat down and activated the mysterious heaven technique. Under the swirling green light, the boiling energy quickly broke through the previously blocked bottleneck. Unlike last time, his attempt was successful. The aura emanating from Tang San became noticeably denser, and his absorption of the natural elemental energy also went up a notch. He had finally reached the 4th order of the mysterious heaven technique. Having successfully broken through the 4th order, Tang San immediately felt that the entire world changed. No, actually, it was his perception of the world that had changed. It was a strange feeling. In his perception, this world was calling out to him, and he could sense a rich and powerful spiritual energy belonging to this world. Everything seemed to be beckoning to him. Furthermore, the imprint of his Wind Wolf bloodline had deepened noticeably. Even though he hadn't and Oppos consumed much, the power of a 4th order bloodline still strengthened him. Most important, however, it was the improvement of the mysterious heaven technique. Through the years of cultivation and the experience gained from this successful breakthrough, Tang San was gradually coming to understand the relationship between his mysterious heaven technique and the demonic god transformation. Or rather, the relationship between his mysterious heaven technique and the demonic bloodlines. To become even more powerful, he needed to acquire more skills. Therefore, he planned to find stronger demons with abilities that suited him, consume them, and imbue himself with their bloodline abilities. That way, he could gain their bloodline powers and improve his own. It was undoubtedly the best choice. Wind Wolf Town was not the place for him to stay indefinitely. He needed to go to the major cities of the Tianyu Empire to encounter demons with more potent bloodlines. However, he needed to have the power to consume them. 3 years, that was how long it would take him to establish himself here. According to Wang Yanfeng, once he had the status of a vassal, he could freely travel around the continent. With the consent of his master, of course. In 3 years, he would head to the major cities. That was the goal Tang San had set for himself. In the meantime, accumulation was the most crucial thing for him for the next 3 years. Gathering more strength, mastering the skills he remembered from his past life, and enhancing his powers. Maybe it was because Tang San only extracted a small amount of bloodline energy from Wang Yanfeng, but when he saw his teacher the next day, the latter seemed to have returned to normal. However, there was a noticeable change in Wang Yanfeng and Oppos' gaze when he looked at Tang San. How could he not see that this 8-year-old child possessed the power of the 3rd order? But this also made Wang Yanfeng feel somewhat relieved. He was relieved that Tang San's willingness to fight him did not stem from some kind of childish stubbornness, but from an innate combat instinct. In fact, his talent was so shocking that he could hold his own against Wang Yanfeng as long as the latter did not go all out. Not only did the kid have a deep understanding of the wind blade ability, but he also showed remarkable skills in close combat. In the morning, Wang Yanfeng continued the cultural lessons and taught the students even more. Tang San continued to listen attentively and diligently learn to read and write. After the lessons were over, Wang Yanfeng called Tang San upstairs again. Wang Yanfeng said, "Tang San, there and Oppos, something I need to talk to you about. I mentioned it yesterday, but I think I may not have been clear enough." Tang San nodded in reply. "Please go ahead, teacher." Wang Yanfeng continued, "During our first lesson, I explained the concept of collective punishment to you. You remember that, right?" Tang San nodded again. Wang Yanfeng said, "I want to talk to you about collective punishment, but it's not because I and Oppos am afraid of death. I and Oppos lived for several decades, which is considered old among humans, and compared to most people I can think of myself as pretty lucky. At least I could spend my life with my wife, and we and Oppos had a good life together. However, there are 27 vassals in our Wind Wolf town. Every surviving vassal has a strength of at least the 3rd order or higher. Counting the 5 of you, we have a total of 32 people. And if a single one of us is found to be suspicious, it could lead to collective punishment for all of us. He paused for a moment and drew a deep breath before continuing. The word and oppos, redemption and oppos, that you mentioned yesterday should not be discussed with anyone. You should also hide your strength as much as possible. You are young and impulsive and you must control that. Keeping a low profile is not only for your own sake, but also for the sake of all the people in our Windwolf town. Do you understand what I mean? I understand. Tang Sen nodded earnestly. Wang Yanfeng lightly sighed and said, I sure hope you understand. Well, anyway, you defeated me yesterday and I will keep my word. Starting tonight, you and Oppos, LL come to this room to practice. Inside this room there and Oppos, an array made of wind spirit stones. Although it and Oppos, pretty rudimentary, it represents years of effort on my part. Come here every other day to practice, and it will help you improve your understanding of the wind element. It will also improve the effects of your wind wolf transformation. The fact that you have such abilities at only 8 years old means that your potential is incredible. Listen to your teacher, work as hard as you possibly can, and the future will hold great opportunities for you. Yes, Tang San replied respectfully. Wang Yanfeng hesitated for a moment before saying, Do you have anything to say or ask? Tang San replied, Teacher, do you want me to show you the techniques for controlling the wind blade? Wang Yanfeng and Oppos' mouth twitched, obviously not expecting him to ask this. Still, he only hesitated for a moment before he nodded. Sure. With things as they are, it's quite difficult for me to break through to the 5th level. The Wind Wolf Clan 1 and Oppos provide me with the appropriate techniques. Besides, our bloodline and Oppos' power is ultimately limited, and even the strongest Wind Wolf bloodline in this city doesn't and Oppos have many descendants. Learning some techniques can also enhance it a bit. So yeah, I will accept your offer. Tang San asked, Teacher, is there a way to improve one in Oppos' bloodline? Wang Yanfeng replied, there should be some methods, but I and Oppos am not sure. I and Oppos heard that demons and nymphs can improve their bloodlines within their lineages by passing on the essence of a high-order member and Oppos' bloodline to a lower-order one before death. As for us humans, it and Oppos' not even worth thinking about. How could the demons and nymphs pass on their high-order bloodline power to us? Tang San asked, what if we forcefully strip it away? Is that possible? Wang Yanfeng felt his heart skip a beat. Who told you about this? Was it the person who used to teach you? Tang San nodded. He had a speculation that some people here also had the ability to strip demons and nymphs of their bloodlines, but now he had to pin it on someone in such a way that he wouldn't be discovered, and that someone had to be Zhu Jiasen. Wang Yanfeng said, maybe it and Oppos' possible, but it is not something I can do. For the Redemption Society, maybe. He suddenly paused and then smacked himself in the face. I can't believe I said those 2 damn words. Remember Don and Oppos' bring it up, especially when you are outside. Do not mention it to anyone. Teacher, be gentle with your face. It must be painful, Tang San joked, his mouth twitching. Wang Yanfeng replied exasperatedly, all right, you little rascal. Are you going to teach me now? I want to learn your method of making the wind blades invisible. Tang San nodded and said, Teacher, controlling a wind blade SN and Oppos' that difficult. First, you must make the wind blade utilize its greatest advantage, speed. The wind element itself is the best boost for speed. So you see that the shadowless wind blade is built upon a speed foundation. Today, let me teach you some basic techniques. The first one is called the flicking dart, which can maximize the speed of the wind blade. Once you and Oppos' mastered the flicking dart, I and Oppos' LL teach you the spiraling hand technique. Only after learning these 2 techniques can you start attempting the shadowless wind blade. Wang Yanfeng heard him explain with such confidence that he couldn't and Oppos' help but feel a bit overwhelmed. How did he learn so many techniques? The silence of the previous night not only meant Tang San and Oppos' breakthrough to the 4th order of the mysterious heaven technique, but also Wang Yanfeng and Oppos' protection and approval. This in turn further reinforced Tang San and Oppos' respect for his teacher. Then, he began to teach Wang Yanfeng the basic techniques of the Tang sect and Appo's hidden weapon 100 separation. Wang Yanfeng had excellent control skills, actually better than most wolf demons. As a result, he learned quickly. The time between the end of morning classes and lunch became the time when Wang Yanfeng would learn from Tang San. However, in the eyes of the Wang brothers and Ling Muxue, it seemed like Wang Yanfeng was giving special lessons to Tang San in private. The four of them had no issues with this. Ling Muxue felt the closest to Tang San since they had been together during the most challenging times. As for the Wang brothers being much older, they subconsciously believed that the 8-year-old Tang San needed more guidance from the teacher, or else he might not pass the assessment 3 years later. And when Tang San cultivated inside the wind element array for the first time, his understanding of this world deepened. As night fell, the room was bathed in a soft green glow, and the wind spirit stones in the corner emitted gentle ripples of the wind element. Although only the wind element was in a higher concentration, it still made the spiritual energy in the room several times denser than in the outside world. This wealth of energy was very beneficial for Tang San and Appo's cultivation of the mysterious heaven technique. But he wasn't an Appo's in a hurry to cultivate the mysterious heaven technique. Instead, he tried to get a feel of the wind element here. In his previous life, with his immense divine power and divine consciousness, controlling any element was an effortless task. Everything had changed in this life starting from scratch, and he had to relearn and re-experience everything. The wind element here was incredibly light, with a gentle and refreshing scent. When Tang San attempted to communicate with it using his spiritual power, the wind element naturally rippled and gave off a sense of rejection. It was not drawn to him. However, when Tang San cultivated the mysterious heaven technique, the energy naturally influenced those wisps of wind element energy once inhaled. Then, they were transformed into the essence of heaven and earth, and facilitated the cultivation of the mysterious heaven technique without any problems. But Tang San desired something else. He wanted to become more powerful, and this power couldn't be solely derived from the mysterious heaven technique. At that moment, he used the mysterious heaven technique to activate the wind blade imprint within his body, allowing a portion of his mysterious heaven technique to transform into the energy that generated the wind blades. Within this imprint, Tang San immediately felt something different. As he transformed, the surrounding wind element began to stir. The wind blade imprint within Tang San and Appo's body acted as a focal point, drawing in the wind element energy into his body. Tang San attempted to absorb this energy into his body through this focal point, but he found that there seemed to be a barrier within his body preventing it. However, he could manage to manipulate some of the wind element energy in the surrounding air, albeit with some difficulty. As he formed a wind blade in his palm, the wind blade and Appo's ability to absorb the wind element energy in the air became more apparent, and the wind blade itself became visibly more powerful. Now that and Appo's something. At that moment, Tang San began to understand something crucial. In this mystical world, elements Waren and Appo's readily controlled. They followed specific rules, and they were drawn to those with bloodlines sharing similar elemental traits. It was as if elements had their language, only comprehensible by those with matching bloodlines. In other words, the wolf demons of the Wind Wolf clan could absorb the wind element from the air to strengthen their bloodline. Even vassals could absorb these elements if they had the Wind Wolf bloodline. Bloodlines seem to act as a filter for natural forces. Thus, the reason he couldn't and Appo's absorb it was that he had pure human blood, without any trace of the Wind Wolf clan and Appo's bloodline. The mysterious heaven technique could transform these elemental powers, but couldn't and Appo's directly absorb them from the air. Instead, it could draw the Wind Wolf bloodline energy from Wind Wolf clan members to strengthen his wind blade. The inability to absorb spiritual energy was why humans were so weak. After all, ordinary humans who did not have demon blood simply could not cultivate. In this world, there were no methods suitable for their cultivation. Thus, humans had naturally become slaves. The only reason they hadn't and Appo's been completely wiped out was their strong reproductive ability. Having understood this, his perception of this world deepened even further. Practicing within this wind element array was most beneficial for speeding up his progress in the mysterious heaven technique. Still, it didn't and Appo's have much impact on his connection to the wind element itself. Of course, Tang San wasn't Appos. T worried about this aspect. In this town, everything was lacking but wind wolves. Now that his mysterious heaven technique had reached the 4th stage, his overall strength had improved significantly. Obtaining more bloodline power from some wind wolves would naturally be more manageable now. Tang San made his plans for the cultivation that was to follow. He would cultivate in the wind element array on the house and Appos' second floor every night. And on the following day and Appos' evening, he would creep out of the house and look for lone members of the Wind Wolf clan. He didn't and Appos. T picked the 4th order wind wolves, who were stronger but rarer. Instead, he targeted the 3rd order wind wolves. From every 3rd order wind wolf he found, he would only absorb a third of its bloodline power. This power could be quickly recuperated in a couple of days, leaving the target slightly weaker and none the wiser. Absorbing less power meant Tang San would digest that more quickly. Almost every time, this absorbed power could be integrated in 2 days. The absorption was beneficial for cultivating the energy of the mysterious heaven technique and improving his mastery of the wind blade. The days were passing uneventfully. The Wang brothers and Ling Muxue had good innate talent, and under the careful training of Wang Yanfeng, they made quick progress. A year passed, and the 4 of them had reached the cultivation level of a 2nd order wind wolf. According to their bloodline triggers and awakening, it seemed that they would have no trouble getting to the 3rd order after 3 years. Once all of them could use the wind blade, Wang Yanfeng started teaching them the hidden weapon techniques that he had learned from Tang San. As Tang San anticipated, his cultivation of the mysterious heaven technique had slowed down due to the suppression of the dimension. It had been 1 year, and he had yet to reach the 5th order. However, he did get stronger as he practiced other things he had learned in his past life. Under the careful guardianship of Wang Yanfeng, the 5 of them were well taken care of and started showing significant changes. First and foremost, there was the matter of their physical condition. When they had first arrived, they had all been pale and emaciated, extremely frail and feeble. However, after a year of eating properly and training well, they had all grown significantly healthier. Wang Chao had already reached adulthood, and he had a muscular physique, standing at over 1.8 m tall, which was considered quite tall among humans. Wang Zhong still appeared thin, but there was a sense of inner strength in him. His small eyes were always narrowed, with a hint of coldness. He spoke the least among them but was the most dedicated in his training. Among the 3 Wang brothers, Wang Xiaolei was the most lively, but he had something else on his mind. He often revolved around Ling Muxue, which annoyed her. Despite being quite a bit younger, Wang Xiaolei had reached a considerable height, standing at over 1.7 meters, slightly taller than Wang Zhong. It was likely that he would grow even taller in adulthood, surpassing Wang Chao. The most significant transformation was seen in Ling Muxue. Through her dedication to training and proper nutrition, the girl who had once appeared small and delicate had now become vibrant and full of life. At 11, she had just started to enter adolescence, and her height was around 1.5 meters. As for Tang San, his changes were the least noticeable. He still appeared somewhat slender and hadn't and Appos. T experienced significant growth in height, making him the most unremarkable looking among the group of 5. Tang San, come here for a moment. After finishing the morning cultural class, Wang Yanfeng once again called Tang San upstairs. The other 4 had already become accustomed to this routine. Tang San followed Wang Yanfeng upstairs and entered a room. Wang Yanfeng pointed to the wall. When Tang San and Appos' gaze fell on what was hanging on the wall, his eyes brightened. It was a map, a rough-looking map. Wang Yanfeng said, "This is what you and Appos' have been wanting all along. I found it for you. It wasn't an Appos'. Easy, I tell you. By the way, there and Appos' an opportunity coming up. The Wind Wolf Lord has asked me to visit Jialing City, and I can take an attendant with me. How about you come with me?" Entering the city, Tang San and Appos' eyes instantly lit up, and his usually calm gaze was filled with excitement. Over the past year, he had learned the written language of the demon continent under Wang Yanfeng and Appos' guidance. Wang Yanfeng had told him many legends about the demons and nymphs, as well as different races. For him, studying culture was far more critical than the afternoon practice. However, it had been 9 years since arriving in this world, yet he had never left the Wind Wolf town. Yes, Haven and Appos. You always wanted to go into the city to see what it and Appos is like? This is a perfect opportunity for me to bring you along, Wang Yanfeng said with a smile. For Tang San, he had a rather strange mix of emotions. Over the past year, he had taught Tang San a lot but also learned a great deal from Tang San. Initially, he had thought that Tang San mainly had some superficial knowledge of that mysterious person. However, when he started learning to control the wind blades from Tang San, he realized that Tang San had opened a new door for him. Although Wang Yanfeng's cultivation still stagnated at the fourth order, he was confident that compared to himself a year ago, he was now in a completely different league. This change was all thanks to Tang San. So, despite his young age, Wang Yanfeng had never underestimated him. At the same time, he also noticed that the power of Tang San's wind blade had been steadily increasing. Wang Yanfeng couldn't and Appos. Be sure of Tang San and Appos' true strength now, but he could sense that this kid was making rapid progress. For that reason, during combat training, only the other four would spar with each other. Tang San was exempted from participating in these exercises by Wang Yanfeng, who cited his young age as the reason. Tang San had been able to defeat him even a year back, so what was the point of further combat training? Moreover, Wang Yanfeng had to be very careful to conceal Tang San and Appos' true strength. Being able to go to the city was undoubtedly good news to Tang San. He was immensely curious about the world and wanted to learn as much as possible. If it weren't and Appos, for his lack of strength and lack of a legitimate identity, he would have liked to leave this place a long time ago. From Wang Yanfeng and Appos' teachings, he knew that the world was vast, incredibly so. It was even more extensive than the Douluo continent of his previous life. Finding a single person in such a boundless world was like searching for a needle in a haystack. It was difficult, far too difficult. Moreover, humans were simply insignificant in this world. He couldn't and Appos. Be sure what Xiaowu and Appos' situation would be like after her reincarnation. The reason he couldn't and Appos bear to part with that fragment of divine consciousness, unless there was a true life or death situation, was also that it allowed him to faintly sense whether his wife was still alive. This was the only thing he could be sure of now. Yes, his wife was still alive, somewhere in a corner of this vast world. If he could get his cultivation back to the god level, he could use his divine consciousness to search for her more efficiently. But he couldn't and Appos. Wait. Even though the spiritual energy in this world was highly abundant, there were still many limitations in this dimension for him. In such circumstances, he didn't know how much suppression and hardship he would have to endure to cultivate to the god level. In addition, he also couldn't know what would happen to his wife while he struggled to reach that level. Whether she was safe and whether she would fall in love with someone else and become their partner were the things Tang San worried about the most. Naturally, the stronger he became, the more impatient he was to leave this place. As he pondered, his gaze shifted toward the map before him. This map was quite crude, and it only had minimal marking and some general notations. The map had a line stretching from the northwest to the southeast, serving as a divider. One side of the line was labeled Empyrean Dominion, while the other was marked as the Solstice Empire. The diagonal line was the territorial demarcation between the demons and nymphs. As for the land size, the two empires were almost equal, though it seemed that the Solstice Empire, ruled by the nymphs, was ever so slightly bigger. In the middle of the map, near the line dividing the kingdoms of the demons and nymphs, was the label for a city. Sanctum Spiritus City. Sanctum Spiritus City was the core city for all demons and nymphs, and was ruled by both races. Legends claim that it was the first city established on the continent. Then Tang San found the label for yet another city. Kali City was the city that was the closest to Wind Wolf Town. The city was one of the 7 cities of the Empyrean Dominion. While it was comparatively remote, it was a key location for the demon races. The continent had 15 cities, 7 each for the demons and nymphs. As for the Sanctum Spiritus City, both sides claimed that it belonged to them. As a result, each side often claimed that they had 8 cities. As for Wind Wolf Town, it wasn't Appos. Even labeled on the map. The map only showed the 15 cities within the 2 empires. Tang San and Appos' heartbeat quickened as he swept his gaze across the map, doing his best to memorize notable locations and cities from the map. His beloved wife had to be somewhere on this map. Xiaowu, where are you? Seeing the visible changes in Tang San and Appo's expression, Wang Yanfeng was in Appo's surprised. He had felt the same when he first entered the big city. He had been much more excited than Tang San. Kali City is not like Windwolf Town. In such a large city, there are demons of almost every level. There are even nymph clans. We are nothing more than vassals, the lowest level of existence in the city. A big city doesn't in Appo's even allow slaves to enter. I will help you get a temporary vassal identity token that you must bring along. If you don an Appo's you risk getting killed anytime. Teacher, is the city dangerous? Tang San had already returned to his senses at this point. Wang Yanfeng shook his head and said, normally, no one would pay attention to us lesser beings, so naturally we can't Appo's speak of any danger. But we still need to be as careful as possible. When the time comes, follow me and do exactly what I tell you to do. Remember, don and Appo's talk or look around too much. Be discreet and cautious. Okay. Tang San nodded. He was also very interested in the other cities of this world. In this Windwolf city it seemed safe, but there was no chance for him to search for his wife. At the same time, he needed to go to the outside world to look and find a way to enhance himself. He could tell it would be even more difficult for his mysterious heaven technique to break through from the 4th to the 5th order. 2 days later, Wang Yanfeng completed the formalities. Only then did he take Tang San and leave Windwolf Town together. Because Wang Yanfeng was at the 4th order, in the entire Windwolf Town, he was the most powerful of the human vassals. When ordinary wolf demons saw him, although they didn't Appo's have a favorable expression, they didn't Appo's speak ill of him either. Walking out of Windwolf Town, Tang San experienced a strange sensation. It felt peculiar, like fish leaping in the vast ocean and birds soaring in the boundless sky. He took a deep breath, and he finally felt that the air was refreshing. Wang Yanfeng led him to a small path. Following this path would lead them onto the main road to Kali City, and the city waited for them at the end of that road. The path wasn't an Appo's wide, only 3 or 4 meters. It wasn't an Appo's perfectly flat, but it wasn't an Appo's too rocky either. It was paved with gravel, and it was clear that human slaves had done the work. The task assigned by the Windwolf Lord to Wang Yanfeng this time was to travel to Kali City and deliver a tribute list to the Windwolf Overlord. The Wolf Demon clan was a large clan even from the perspective of the entire demon race. It wasn't Appo's strong enough to have a principal city of its own, but because of the clan and Appo's large numbers and decent individual strength, the Wolf Demon clan was still in the top 20 amongst all demon clans. Although it was just barely in the rankings, there were hundreds upon hundreds of different types of demons. To be able to enter the top 20 was already a substantial achievement. On the other hand, the Wind Wolf clan was considered weaker among the lineage of wolf demons. But even so, it was still a lineage belonging to one of the great clans. The Wind Wolf Overlord was also a powerful existence that had access to the core of the Wolf Demon clan. As a minor lord of the Wind Wolf clan, it was necessary to make offerings to the clan overlord every year. Of course, to show their submission to the clan overlord, the delivery of the tributes was certainly not something that Wang Yanfeng was qualified to do. At the end of the year, they would be personally escorted by the Wind Wolf Lord and the Wind Wolf High Priest to Kali City. Wang Yanfeng was simply sent to deliver the tribute list to Wind Wolf Overlord for approval. If the Overlord was unsatisfied, it would mean trouble for the Wind Wolf Lord. If the clan Overlord was satisfied, it was good news. It was about 300 kilometers from Wind Wolf Town to Kali City. Rushing day and night with Tang San and Wang Yanfeng and Appo's speed, they could arrive in about 3 days. Following the gravel road, the teacher and student didn't and Appo's dare to delay and traveled quickly. The Wind Wolf Lord had ordered them to deliver the message and be back within 10 days. If there was a delay, Wang Yanfeng would be punished. Moreover, if they were faster, they would naturally be able to stay in Kali City for a little longer. While traveling, Wang Yanfeng asked Tang San, "Let me quiz you, what is used for trading among the big cities?" Tang San quickly answered, "In villages and towns, most transactions are just bartering. And in the big cities or the entire continent, it and Appo's all done with coins made from rare minerals or plants. On the Empyrean Dominion and Appo's S side, it's mainly mineral coins. On the Solstice Empire and Appos, S side, it's mainly plant-based coins. The biggest advantage of these coins is that they contain energy, which can be directly absorbed and used to strengthen bloodlines, so they cannot be counterfeited. In other words, the coins themselves are valuable. Wang Yanfeng nodded with satisfaction. Not bad, you are remembering quite clearly. What about the monetary system on the Empyrean Dominion and Appos, S side? Tang San said, there are 5 main currencies in the Empyrean Dominion. The highest level is the amethystine coin. It and Appos, S crafted from a special purple gold metal. It is said to contain a considerable amount of energy. Even great demons and great nymphs could use it for cultivation. The amethystine coins are rare and generally not circulated on the market. Their value is more on a symbolic level. 1 amethystine coin is approximately equal to 100 Empyrean's coins. The Empyrean coin was named after the Empyrean Dominion, and its material is made of 6 rare minerals spliced together. These rare minerals possess the 6 elemental attributes of water, fire, earth, wind, light, and darkness. Being able to splice them together is a challenging craft in itself, and the energy contained within them is tremendous. It is very effective in stimulating the strength of a bloodline. 1 Empyrean is, in turn, equal to 10 Naturi coins. Naturi coins are categorized into 6 types, the same 6 attributes that comprise the Empyrean coins. The quality is slightly lower than the same variety of minerals used in the Empyrean coins. This is also the most mainstream higher currency circulating in the market. It has extreme purchasing power. Below the 6 elemental coins are the Etherhorn coins. They are made from a kind of ore known as Etherhorn. 1 Naturi coin is approximately equal to 100 Etherhorn coins. As for the lowest form of currency, they are collectively named Demon's Heart coins. Their value is measured in terms of energy strength. Minerals that contain about 1% or more of the bloodline power of a first-order demon can be used as Demon's Heart coins. There are many kinds of Demon's Heart coins because of the different demon races that produce them. The exchange rates between Demon's Heart coins and Etherhorn coins differ, requiring more complicated calculations. Most of the time, big cities still use Etherhorn coins for transactions. Wang Yanfeng nodded again, very satisfied with his pupil. Your memory is very good. Wind Wolf Town in Appos, S biggest source of income is a wind spirit mine next to the town. The fist-sized wind spirit stones from this mine are approximately equivalent to 1/5 of the value of an Etherhorn coin. It ISN in Appos, T considered a precious mineral, but it still has its worth. The mine stones are handed to the Wind Wolf clan annually. The strong-bodied slaves are all sent to be miners. Tang San had naturally seen wind spirit stone, a greenish-gray ore. The wind elemental formation in Wang Yanfeng and Appos, S room relied on this kind of ore. While the ore had its impurities, it was rare because it contained only one element, wind. Wang Yanfeng lightly sighed and said, a fist-sized wind spirit stone weighs about 1 kilogram. Our tribute list promises 5,000 kilograms of wind spirit stones this time. That and Appos, S more than 2/3 of the city and Appos, S production. It is the same situation every year. Is the Wind Wolf clan very powerful? To us they are. The overlord of the Wind Wolf clan is a strong contender for the top 10 of the Wolf Demon clan. And while he and Appos, S not at the very top, he is still highly skilled. It is said that he is already at the 10th order or higher. A strong leader in the demon clan often determines the clan and Appos' survival. Survival of the fittest, Tang San said plainly. You and Appos rewrite it and Appos' a world where the weak are preyed upon. The path from Wind Wolf Town to the main road was rather deserted, and they encountered no demons. A day later, the path finally converged with the main road. The main road leading to Kali City was much broader. It was 50 meters wide and was the smoothest path Tang San had seen. It was still paved with gravel, but it was surprisingly flat, with jungle and hills on both sides. Now that they were on the main road, they could see a lot of different races present. There were and Appos, many slaves, but the various demon races were genuinely eye-opening for Tang San. He had mainly seen wolf demons in Wind Wolf Town. Pig demons were present also but were considered to be a subordinate race. Demon races who were not good at combat were generally under the rule of another race. Now within just half a day, Tang San saw more than 10 types of demons on the busy road. Among these demons, there was one that left a deep impression on him. It was a massively built creature. It moved on all fours with powerful limbs, but could also stand upright, revealing a somewhat humanoid body shape. When it was upright, it towered over everyone around at over 8 meters. Its nose, over 5 meters long, swung as it moved, and its massive head was covered in thick horn-like layers. Its eyes were a pale purple, exuding an aura of immense power. Wang Yanfeng waited for the monstrous creature to pass before he dared to explain to Tang San. That was an elephant demon, a strong one at that. The elephant demon clan was not as intricately divided as the wolf demon clan, possessing only one main lineage. Their numbers were also much lower compared to the wolf demons. However, unlike the wolf demons, the elephant demons ranked within the top 10 superclans. A newborn elephant demon already possessed strength of the 3rd order. Adult elephant demons were even more formidable, boasting 7th order or higher strengths. The massive and powerful creature they had just encountered was merely an ordinary adult elephant demon. Assessing the strength of an elephant demon involved more than just looking at their size. The color of their eyes was also important. Ordinary elephant demons had pale purple eyes, while those of the 8th order had deep purple eyes. When the elephant demons reached the 9th order, their eyes turned red. It was said that the eyes of elephant demons of the 10th order and above were golden, and they were known as the Golden War elephants. They were famous for their formidable combat abilities. Although only at the 7th order, this particular elephant demon exuded an intense vitality that Tang San could sense as it passed. Coupled with its burly physique, one could imagine how incredible this elephant demon and Appo's combat ability was. Seeing such a mighty demon race, Tang San increasingly understood why demons and nymphs held a dominant position in this world. Their innate strength made them virtually unbeatable. To him, the so-called demon race was essentially a bunch of demonic beasts that had awakened their spiritual intelligence, which was something he had seen in his previous life as well. On the demon continent, there were also demonic beasts that hadn't and Appo's awakened their spiritual intelligence. These beasts were enslaved and controlled by the demon race. There was sometimes a subordinate relationship between a species of demonic beasts and a closely related demon race. Basically, the demonic beasts were vassals to their more intelligent counterparts. Also, these vassal demonic beasts actually held a higher status than human vassals. After all, demonic beasts were more valuable in the eyes of the demon race. Under Wang Yanfeng and Appo's lead, the two traveled along the very edge of the main road. Human vassals were not allowed to walk in the center of the road, or they could be easily trampled to death by whatever demon happened to gallop by, and nobody would even bat an eye. They hastened their journey as much as they could, and after a day and a half of braving the elements, the two finally arrived at their destination. From a distance, Tang San could see a colossal city wall, towering at a staggering height of 100 meters. Indeed, it was no exaggeration to say that the city wall looked like an insurmountable cliff. It wasn't just a metaphor either. The wall was built between two large mountains, and the sheer cliffs perfectly framed it. Thanks to the teachings of Wang Yanfeng, Tang San was already aware that Kali City was a basin city surrounded by mountains that provided the best natural defense for the city. Only on the north and south sides were sections of the wall, with city gates through which one could enter. The city gates stood wide open, allowing free entry and exit. There were no city guards in sight either. Wang Yanfeng didn't and Appo's immediately lead Tang San into the city. Instead, he held him back, waiting nearby. They waited until there was a lull in the flow of demons entering and exiting the city gates, then quickly entered. As soon as Tang San stepped through the city gates, he felt like he had entered another world. They were located in the northeastern part of the demon continent, so Wind Wolf Town was naturally cold for most of the year. However, inside Kali City, it felt more like a pleasant end of spring. The air was warmer, more humid, and richer in spiritual energy than the outside, and it immediately made Tang San feel refreshed. The city and Appo's streets were paved with solid and even stone slabs, and on either side of the road stood tall buildings made of wood and stone. As he walked through the city, Tang San saw more and more demon races. Compared to the world outside, the diversity was incredible. He mentally matched each of them to the types Wang Yanfeng had taught him about. Despite his intense dislike for the demon races, he couldn't oppose. T helped but feel a sense of awe. Don and oppose. T look, Wang Yanfeng whispered, stepping in front of Tang San to block his view. What did I tell you? Yes, Tang San responded, lowering his head. His observations weren't and oppose. T just casual glances. At that moment his heart was filled with shock. The demon races were even mightier than his original world and oppose. Soul beasts at their most powerful. Although just one of the main cities of the demon race, Kali City was filled with plenty of demon clans, and each of their members emanated a powerful aura. Every clan had its unique characteristics. Even the more common demon races seemed to possess formidable strength. Indeed, humans without any unique talents were vastly inferior to them. Tang San couldn't oppose. T helped but sigh inwardly. It was exceedingly difficult for humans to contend with the demon race in this world. To change this situation would require starting from the very foundation. Only if humans also possessed the ability to cultivate and strengthen themselves could change be possible. Even so, it would be challenging, as the demons and nymphs held too much control over the continent. Humans would likely be suppressed immediately if any such abilities were discovered, and they would simply be killed or sent back into slavery. Moreover, was the demonic god transformation the way out for humanity? Certainly not. The origin of the demonic god transformation was rooted in the oppression of humans by the demon race, leading to the mixing of human bloodlines with that of demons. In reality, such mixed blood was far inferior to the pure bloodlines of the stronger demon races. For the salvation of humanity, it wasn't oppose enough to give them innate talent. It was also essential to create space for their development. A fledgling idea began to take shape in Tang San and Oppo's mind. We and Oppos. I'll find a place to stay first. We can probably stay here for about 3 days. After we complete the task, I and Oppos. I'll show you around. Wang Yanfeng and Oppos' voice brought Tang San back from his thoughts. Okay, teacher, Tang San agreed obediently, bowing his head. As they moved along the edge of the city, Wang Yanfeng, who seemed quite familiar with Kali City, quickly found a place to stay. Surprisingly, it was a modest little inn run by a human vassal like themselves. The innkeeper, a woman about Wang Yanfeng and Oppos' age, was pleasantly surprised to see them. She greeted Wang Yanfeng with a warm hug. Why are you here? She asked. Wang Yanfeng returned the hug with equal enthusiasm, his eyes filled with joy. I and Oppos am here on a mission. We and Oppos I'll be staying for a few days. Tang San, come here. He introduced Tang San to the innkeeper. This is my new disciple, Tang San. Tang San, this is my sister Gue. You can call her Aunt Gue. Tang San internally sighed in relief, realizing she was Wang Yanfeng and Oppos' sister. Hello, Aunt Gue, he greeted, noting the unusual name. Gue looked at Tang San with a hint of surprise. Awakened at such a young age? It and Oppos. Been a while since I and Oppos seen a child awaken so early. But can he pass the... She paused, her face showing a hint of pity. Wang Yanfeng coughed lightly, interrupting her. Let and Oppos get settled in first. He was not worried about Tang San passing any test. If Tang San couldn't and Oppos pass, then who could? Of course he couldn't and Oppos tell Gue that this child had even taught him to control wind blades. It was just a small inn, and it had about 20 rooms, each about 10 square meters with 2 beds. The price was quite affordable. It was nothing luxurious, but the rooms were clean and quiet. Wang Yanfeng told Tang San to rest in the room before leaving with Gue, most likely for a chat. The room had a window, but the inn and Oppos' secluded location meant the view was limited to a nearby high wall. Tang San noticed other guests at the inn, primarily human vassals. The size of the beds suggested that the inn was designed for humans. The inn most likely served as a designated place of rest for human vassals in Kali City. The inn didn't even have a signpost outside, and it had a small yard in front where some vegetables were growing. All in all, it gave off a feeling of tranquility, and it seemed a rather secluded place, a pleasant break from the bustling city life. Perhaps this is a haven for humans in Kali City. About an hour later, as dusk fell, Wang Yanfeng returned and called Tang San for dinner. The meal was hearty with plenty of meat, but the taste was average at best. Since arriving in this world, Tang San had not enjoyed a truly flavorful meal. Even the wolf demons of Wind Wolf Town ate similarly, just in larger quantities. The culinary standards of this world seemed far inferior to those of his original world. During the meal, Gui joined them and asked Wang Yanfeng, "Are you taking him with you tomorrow?" Wang Yanfeng turned to Tang San. "Tomorrow, I must submit the list to the Wind Wolf ancestral home. Do you want to come along? There and Appos. No danger, but we still need to be careful. Any wolf demon there is stronger than the Wind Wolf Lord back home. I and Appos. LL come with you," Tang San replied without hesitation. His cultivation of the mysterious heaven technique in Windblade had improved, and he hoped to learn more from the wolf demons. Absorbing the essence of a higher-order wolf demon, if his body could withstand it, would greatly benefit his cultivation and allow him to break through faster. "All right." Wang Yanfeng nodded in approval. Gui gave Wang Yanfeng a curious look. To her, Tang San was just a 9-year-old boy, but Wang Yanfeng and Appos' attitude toward him was more that of an equal. This behavior struck her as odd. Turning to Tang San, Gui asked, "Little San, what level have you reached in your Wind Wolf transformation?" Tang San looked at Wang Yanfeng for guidance on how to reply. Wang Yanfeng coughed before responding. He and Appos' doing quite well. I think he has a good chance of passing the upcoming assessments. Oh, such a promising youngster? Gui and Appos' eyes sparkled with interest. No wonder you and Appos' brought him along. However, be cautious. The demons are not known for their kindness. Make sure he doesn't and Appos' cause any trouble. Don and Appos' worry. Tang San is quite dependable, Wang Yanfeng replied with a reassuring smile. To him, Tang San was more than a mere child. His mature demeanor and insightful observations often made him appear the eldest in their group. Gui, intrigued, inquired further, "You seem quite confident in him. Do you have plans to show him around the city after your task?" "Yes, I brought him here to broaden his horizons," Wang Yanfeng nodded. "That and Appos' a good idea. Cali City has been pretty quiet lately, and there haven't been any major conflicts." "Your timing is perfect," Gui noted. Curious, Tang San asked Aunt Gui, "Are there often conflicts within the city?" "Indeed," Gui explained, "the demon clans have a lot of hatred toward each other, and they're very competitive, especially those of similar strength. They fight for higher rankings all the time because that's what dictates how many resources they get and how good. For instance, our Wind Wolf clan often clashes with the Flash Leopard clan, our archenemies. Unfortunately, we usually find ourselves at a disadvantage. So I advise you not to recklessly reveal your Wind Wolf transformation. If you do that and happen to meet an enemy clan, it'll be dangerous. The Wind Wolf clan won in Appos' mourn the loss of a vassal, so concealing our demonic forms is crucial for survival. Do you understand? Flash Leopard clan? Leopard Flash? Flash Leopard clan? Selling milk tea, huh? What in Appos' milk tea? In Tang San and Appos' previous world there was nothing, and in this world he had never seen it either. It appeared to be some kind of beverage. Although not many demons frequented this area, the milk tea shop seemed to be doing well. Demons would stop by one after another and buy a cup each. The cups looked quite large. Tang San focused his vision, a flash of purple light in his eyes as he activated his purple demon eye, looking towards the milk tea shop. His expression turned to one of surprise when he saw the interior of the shop clearly. Running the shop were two women, human women. One appeared slightly older, about 30 years old, and strikingly beautiful, with black hair and eyes and a gentle smile gracing her face. Her entire being radiated a welcoming warmth. She was, without a doubt, the most beautiful woman Tang San had encountered in this world. The younger girl beside her seemed to be around 16 or 17, also quite pretty, bustling about assisting her. Human vassals? Managing a shop in the heart of Cali City? And the demons buying milk tea showed no disdain towards them, simply buying and leaving. They seemed to be using the lowest denomination of demon currency, demon's hard coins, which meant that the tea was not expensive. Some even bought several cups in one go. Mei Gongzi and Appos' milk tea shop. Was this older woman Mei Gongzi then? It was an interesting name and it seemed she lived up to it. 1. Tang San patted his pockets, recalling the demon's hard coins Wang Yanfeng had given him. They were made from wind spirit stones, and would allow him to get himself a little treat at least. A sudden urge overtook him to try this milk tea. The human owners of this place made him feel an innate sense of closeness. Ever since arriving in Cali City, there had been a constant tension in his heart. Now seeing this shop, he wondered, what did this milk tea thing taste like? Tang San looked around and saw no demons nearby, and as Mei Gongzi and Appo's milk tea shop was just finishing serving a few demon customers, the shop was finally empty. Taking a deep breath, Tang San took out a demon's hard coin and made haste toward the shop. This was his first time preparing to use this world and Appo's currency for a transaction. As he approached the shop, a faint milk fragrance wafted out, tickling his nose and making him swallow involuntarily. Now, only a few meters away from Mei Gongzi and Appo's milk tea shop, he could see the woman and the young girl busier than ever. And at that moment, another person emerged from the back, smiling and speaking to the woman. Tang San and Appo's steps halted abruptly, his body frozen in place. In that instant, he felt as if every single one of his nerves exploded with sensations. His eyes went wide, and his body turned rigid beyond his control. The world outside faded in his view. His eyes and heart focused only on the new arrival, who was now smiling gracefully. She looked about 12 or 13, petite and well-proportioned, with neat black hair cascading down her back. Her delicate features adorned a fair face, inheriting all the woman in Appo's beauty but with an added liveliness and a quirky charm. Her long eyelashes framed a pair of big, beautiful black eyes. Tang San stood petrified, his heart filled with a strange ache. At this moment, everything else seemed insignificant. In his eyes, there was only this girl. Despite her appearance being completely different from before, and her temperament also seemingly rather different, the memories etched deep in his divine consciousness recognized this girl. Tang San could never have imagined encountering her so quickly. At this moment, his resistance to this hostile world melted away, replaced only by gratitude. Yes, it's her, it's definitely her. Memories of his past life flooded his mind. This was a destiny that spanned not a lifetime but lifetimes. A destiny that was his sole pursuit. As he was standing a few meters from Mei Gongzi and Appo's milk tea shop, the three people inside naturally noticed him. The woman looked surprised at the stunned Tang San, and the young girl by her side also noticed. The girl frowned slightly, but the woman whispered something and then pointed at Tang San. The black-haired girl nodded and then disappeared from Tang San and Appo's view. Tang San and Appo's rigid foot instinctively stepped forward, his mouth opening as he whispered, "Don and Appo's go." As the figure vanished from sight, his heart filled with a profound emptiness. "Hey, here and Appo's your drink." A pleasant voice sounded beside him. Startled, Tang San slowly turned his head, his stiff body beginning to tremble slightly. The familiar yet unfamiliar figure, the one who haunted his dreams, was right before him. She was offering him a cup that emitted a faint aroma of milk and tea. The black-haired girl looked at Tang San and Appo's dazed expression and frowned again. She shoved the milk tea into Tang San and Appo's hands and said irritably, "Stop staring, just go." Tang San and Appo's voice trembled. Xiao. The black-haired girl paused, then looked toward the milk tea shop. The woman beckoned to her. "Xiao may come back." "Okay, Mom," the girl replied, turning to walk back. Holding the cup of milk tea in his trembling hand, Tang San instinctively stepped forward. The black-haired girl turned back to him and said, "You and Appo's, we got the wrong person. I and Appo's am not Xiao Wu. Everyone calls me Mei Gongzi." Holding the warm cup of milk tea, Tang San opened his mouth but found himself speechless, unable to utter a word. Having been in this world for 9 years, he had witnessed the hardships of humans here, lost his mother in this world, faced constant threats from demons, and found warmth in Wang Yanfeng and Appo's home. Even with the long years of his past life, these things had touched his heart deeply. But never had Tang San been as moved as he was now. After 9 whole years and countless moments of longing and worry, he had finally found Xiao Wu. His emotions overwhelmed him, and his tears started flowing as Mei Gongzi returned to the shop. In his mind spun memories of their past life together, images of her charming smile. 2 different faces in his mind slowly merged into one, The sunlight seemed even brighter, and the air felt fresher. At this moment, this world so unfriendly to humans appeared wondrous to Tang San. He had finally found his wife after reincarnation. It was much easier than he had anticipated. No long journeys or traversing continents. He had found her already. What could be more beautiful than this? Xiao Wu Mei Gongzi. Mei Gongzi had returned to the shop, and her mother was saying something to her. Mei Gongzi looked toward Tang San just in time to see his tear-streaked face. A look of confusion flickered in Mei Gongzi and Appo's beautiful eyes. At the same time, her mother smiled kindly at Tang San, gesturing with a cup-raising motion for him to drink the milk tea. Gradually, Tang San and Appo's emotions settled. His divine consciousness itself seemed to tremble. His hands trembled as well, but he carefully brought the cup to his lips without spilling a drop. The cup was made of some kind of rough material that felt like tree bark. A delicate mix of milk and tea with a sweet undertone warmed him through and through, filling his heart that felt empty no more. At this moment, his heart was no longer hollow or wandering. He had found his fated bond. What could be more beautiful than this? He even felt gratitude towards the wolf demons for the first time. Their refusal to let him into the Wind Wolf and Appo's ancestral home had actually led to this chance encounter with Mei Gongzi. It couldn't have been this easy even if someone intentionally arranged things for him. After another sip of milk tea, wiping his tears away, Tang San turned and sat down under the colossal tree. This cup of Mei Gongzi and Appo's milk tea was the most delicious drink he had ever tasted. His tears had ceased, and a gentle smile now graced his face. He had found her, and nothing could be better. He observed the milk tea shop from afar, watching Mei Gongzi and her mother working inside. Back in that world ruled by humans, she had been a demonic beast. Now, in this demonic beast world, she was a human. Immersed in cultivation, Tang San rarely had time to ponder deeply in these 9 years. He knew he needed strength to find his wife and Appo's reincarnation, but now his mind awakened afresh. He needed to find a way to stay close to her, protect her, and make her fall in love with him again. Nothing was more urgent than this. Whether you are Xiao Wu or Mei Gongzi, you are destined to be my wife. Suddenly, he heard a surprised voice from behind him. Tang San, where did you get that drink? Startled from his thoughts, Tang San stood up to see Wang Yanfeng approaching, his expression suggesting that the task had gone smoothly. Tang San pointed to Mei Gongzi and Appo's milk tea shop in the distance. Teacher, have you seen this shop? The milk tea is delicious. Wang Yanfeng paused, then shook his head. I rarely come to this central district of Cali City. When I do, it and Appo's only to quickly handle affairs at the ancestral home and leave. We should go. The demons living here are not kind. Okay. Tang San nodded, but remembering something, he said, Teacher, wait for me a second. With that, he hurried toward Mei Gongzi and Appo's milk tea shop. When he entered the shop, Mei Gongzi was inside sorting coins. Her mother had just seen off a demon customer. What an Appo's up, young man. Did you like the milk tea? Mei Gongzi and Appo's mother and Appo's beauty was even more apparent up close, and so was the gentle and warm look in her eyes. Tang San took out his one-wind spirit demon's heart, placing it on the table. Auntie, the milk tea was delicious, thank you. This is for the tea. It and Appo's on the house. There is no need for payment, Mei Gongzi and Appo's mother said softly. You should leave quickly. The demons that pass here aren't and Appo's tea the nicest. Auntie, I insist on paying. Thank you. Also, my name is Tang San. As he said his name, his gaze shifted toward Mei Gongzi. Mei Gongzi, however, had her back to him and showed no reaction. Tang San took one last deep look at her, and then he heard Wang Yanfeng calling him from the distance. Despite his reluctance and longing, he had no choice but to leave quickly. Mei Gongzi and Appo's mother watched the boy with some surprise. She could clearly see Tang San and Appo's gaze toward Mei Gongzi, and she could tell that hidden in it was something she'd never seen before. Her daughter was, of course, beautiful, so it made sense for her to attract the attention of boys. However, the boy looked at her not just with admiration and infatuation, but with a deep emotional intensity, even with tear stains at the corner of his eyes. What was it that made him so moved? Back with Wang Yanfeng, Tang San finished the last of his milk tea. Still holding the empty cup, he clutched it gently, reluctant to let go, cherishing it as it had a trace of her presence. On the way back to the inn, Tang San followed behind Wang Yanfeng, his head bowed, walking in the standard manner of a vassal. Wang Yanfeng naturally sensed his emotional shift. After they returned to the inn, he asked with concern, "Are you all right?" "I and Appos am fine, teacher." "I and Appos am actually really fine." Tang San smiled genuinely, a smile from the heart. Wang Yanfeng saw the smile on his face and said, "It seems that cup of milk tea really touched you." "Yes, in this world, despite all the problems we face and everything that works against us, there is still beauty. In your life, even if we face malice every day, our hearts should only cherish the beauty of life. Only then can we truly see the light." No doubt, his words were heartfelt, and Tang San deeply agreed. "Now that the task is done, we can stay in the city for 2 more days. Shall I show you around?" Wang Yanfeng smiled. His task had been successfully completed, and he could report back smoothly to the Wind Wolf Lord. Tang San asked, "Teacher, are there lively places in Kali City?" "I and Appos do like to see them," Wang Yanfeng replied. "There and Appos. Nothing wrong with going to lively places, but remember to be cautious and stay close to me." Of course, Tang San agreed readily. Wang Yanfeng added, "It and Appos. Been a while since I and Appos we been here. Let me ask Gui Gui." When he told Gui Gui about taking Tang San somewhere fun, she said, "There are certainly lively places, many of them. Not far from here, there and Appos. Something worth seeing tonight." It and Appos. The annual Kali City Collision Competition. Many demons from Kali City participate, and there are also some coming from neighboring places. "What in Appos? The collision competition?" Wang Yanfeng asked curiously. Gui Gui explained, "The so-called collision contest is where contestants start 30 meters apart and charge toward each other simultaneously. Whoever is pushed back further by the collision loses. Demons are grouped based on their orders, usually from the 3rd to the 6th. It in Appos. A celebration for the younger generation, basically. The limit is set to the 6th order because collisions between stronger beings of higher orders might cause unnecessary injuries or deaths. Also, those above the 6th order usually lose interest in games. This does sound interesting. But surely those of stronger-built species have an advantage, no?" Wang Yanfeng remarked with a smile. Gui Gui replied, "I and Appos. We watched it once and there and Appos. Definitely some skill involved. You know what, let and Appos go after dinner. Should start right around then." Tang San and Wang Yanfeng had spent over 4 hours on the round trip to the Wind Wolf ancestral home today. In addition to the time spent there, it was already afternoon when they returned. Tang San was keen on watching the collision contest, especially since it involved demons from the 3rd to the 6th order, which aligned well with his target range for bloodline devouring. After meeting Mei Gongzi, Tang San and Appos' mind became more active, feeling an even stronger urge to become powerful. Mei Gongzi and Appos' milk tea shop was located in the core district of Kali City, where powerful demons of the 8th and 9th order were likely to be found. Now that he had finally found her, nothing was more important than ensuring her safety. To protect her, he needed to become stronger. His current 4th order strength was clearly insufficient. Over the years, Tang San had mostly figured out the relationship between his mysterious heaven technique cultivation and the bloodline energy of the demons in this world. The mysterious heaven technique allowed Tang San to devour and transform external energies into his strength, leaving bloodline imprints within his body. Through these imprints, he could reverse transform and release similar abilities. The stronger the imprint, the more powerful skills Tang San could unleash. Basically, the demonic bloodline imprints in his body acted like blueprints for various skills, and the more detailed the blueprint, the better. He needed to enhance his mysterious heaven technique and elevate the levels of these imprints to wield greater power. According to Tang San and Appos' research and experience, he would likely need to continue with this cultivation method until the 9th order of the mysterious heaven technique. The best way for him to rapidly enhance his abilities was to acquire more skills. In this world, humans inheriting demonic god transformation bloodlines could only have one ability. However, through the mysterious heaven technique in Appos, S devouring he was in Appos, T subject to this limitation, and he could possess multiple abilities. The more abilities he had, and the better he combined them, the stronger he would become. In the city and Appos, S bustling areas, it would be easier for him to stealthily absorb some lower order abilities, enhancing his strength and speeding up his cultivation. He needed more bloodline abilities to strengthen himself. At the same time, absorbing bloodline energy could be used to cultivate the mysterious heaven technique, allowing him to reach the following order. Today was perhaps the most proactive day for Tang San and Appos' cultivation since he had arrived in this world. The fourth order wasn't in Appos' enough, nor was the fifth. He needed to reach the ninth order as soon as possible to be able to make use of his divine consciousness properly and rebuild his spiritual power to reach the god level. Awakening abilities from his past life that were unknown in this world was essential to truly protect Mei Gongzi. After resting for a while and having dinner, Gui put on some fancier clothes and led Wang Yanfeng and Tang San out. Dressing up was necessary in this world where appearances mattered. As human vassals in a big city, they were not often antagonized as long as they didn't provoke others. After all, demons also needed vassals to serve them. Humans were known as the smartest among all vassal races. Though not strong, they were adept at complex tasks. The collision contest was an Appos' of a very high level, involving only demons of orders up to 6, mostly young ones. The rewards were modest. The first place prize for the 6th order was 5 Naturi coins. Although Naturi coins had immense purchasing power from the perspective of a villager like Tang San, they weren't and Appos' considered all that much for most wealthy demons. The rewards decreased for lower orders. 4 coins for the 5th, 3 for the 4th, and only 1 for the 3rd order champions. 2nd and 3rd places received Etherhorn coins as rewards. The highest order in the currency system was the Amethyst and Florins, followed by Empyreans, but neither was included in the rewards, indicating that this contest was more about fun than substantial prizes. The contest was held in a town square surrounded by shops selling different items. Before meeting Mei Gongzi, Tang San might have been more interested in these shops to learn about the demon races. His priorities had changed, however, and he now focused more on the collision contest. The square was filled with thousands of demons. The central area, about 50 meters in diameter, was cordoned off by the Kali guards, with members from various races. Becoming a guard required at least 4th order strength. In the demon races, military units were organized by each city separately, and each of the 7 cities had their own guards. Naturally, guards with stronger cultivations were given better roles. The 4th order was just the entry level for the Kali guards, reflecting the overall strength of this continent and Appos' demons and nymph races. Among the crowd were many wearing the attire of vassals, most of them being human. Some were accompanying demons, obviously serving as followers. The contest hadn't an Appos' started yet, and it was getting dark, but giant poles around the square, topped with luminous ores, lit up the area. The atmosphere was mixed due to the presence of many different demonic races, but the spiritual energy was rich. Tang San, following Gui and Wang Yanfeng, found a spot at the edge of the venue, occupied mainly by vassal races. On one side of the area was a platform where the currency prize awaited. It was the first time Tang San had seen Naturi coins. The elemental Naturi coins emitted a distinct glow, overshadowing the Etherhorn coins nearby. The Etherhorn coins, a dark silver, looked ancient and restrained, giving Tang San a strange feeling. The collision contest is about to begin, a booming voice announced. Suddenly, around the contest arena, the demons erupted in deafening cheers. Tang San felt like he had stepped into a throng of beasts. A colossal giant strode into the inner ring, standing at a towering 4 meters in height, exuding a wild aura that only emphasized his immense strength. His entire body seemed to be covered in black fur, and he was naked save for a pair of leather shorts. On his chest, white fur formed a large V-shaped pattern. Tang San could tell that this was a bear demon, but he didn't really know what kind, and he couldn't tell just based on appearance. This is the Berserk Bear Clan, one of the most powerful in combat among bear demons. Actually, they're second only to the Royal Bear Clan. They are naturally endowed with massive strength, and they naturally reach the 6th order as they mature. Gue muttered softly. The Berserk Bear Clan. Tang-san committed this to memory. Adult 6th Order demons. These demon clans are indeed formidable. The Berserk Bear Demon stood at the very center of the arena. He let out a roar toward the sky, and the powerful sound wave drowned out all the surrounding cheers. At least a 7th Order demon, Wang Yanfeng whispered. This was clearly an elite member of the Berserk Bear Clan. The collision contest, same old rules. The point of impact is this circle under my feet. The circle and Oppo's edge is the starting point for measuring after the collision. Whoever is closer to the edge is the victor. The Berserk Bear Clan and Oppo's strongman declared in a deep voice. Only then did Tang-san notice a circle with a diameter of about 3 meters beneath his feet. This meant both parties would accelerate towards each other and collide within the circle. Whoever was sent flying farther after the collision would be the loser. This also meant that whoever was faster and entered deeper into the circle would have a slight advantage. In other words, this was not only a contest of strength but also of speed. 3rd Order people can now sign up. Whoever wins 10 consecutive matches or has no more challengers will be today and Oppo's victor, the Berserk Bear announced with a wave of his hand, starting the collision contest. Tang-san asked Wang Yanfeng, teacher, in the collision contest, can we use techniques during the collision? Can we use innate abilities to attack the opponent? Of course. The demons value martial prowess above all. The collision contest may be the simplest form of competition, but as long as you have the skills, any ability can be used, and any means can be employed for victory. The rule of the demons has always been to only look at the victory, not how you achieved it. Tang-san nodded in approval, pondered momentarily, and asked, teacher, can I sign up? Wang Yanfeng was taken aback, and Gue instantly turned to look at Tang-san. You want to sign up? Gue and Oppo's pitch rose slightly. I want to try. There and Oppo's money to be won, Tang-san said, pointing to the winner and Oppo's rewards on a table in the distance. Wang Yanfeng looked at Gue, who frowned slightly and said, vassals can also participate, but generally speaking it and Oppo's hard to compare with the demons. Moreover, they don't have any scruples even toward each other, so you can imagine what they're like when they fight vassals. If you get killed, nobody will bat an eye. Do you really want to try? Tang-san nodded. I want to give it a go. Teacher, I am fairly confident. Even if I don an Oppo's win, I shoot an Oppo's lose too badly. Wang Yanfeng had a good understanding of his abilities, so he shook his head. I know you're good, but in terms of sheer strength you... Tang-san replied without hesitation. I'll use skill to overcome strength. Since you say that the collision contest only cares about the outcome, not the process, then I think I have a chance to win. He would have never considered joining the collision contest if not for his encounter with Mei Gongzi today. Before he had the means to protect himself, it was best to keep a low profile. However, after seeing Mei Gongzi today, his heart was filled with a fighting will. Time waited for no one. He could no longer afford to cultivate in a leisurely manner. Even if it meant taking risks, he had to become stronger faster. Only then could he have a chance to get close to Mei Gongzi and protect her. Begue whispered, Essen and Oppo's. That too risky? Whether you win or lose, it and Oppo's really not a wise thing to do. Tang-san pulled out a piece of cloth from under his shirt. He folded the fabric into a triangle, covered his face, and tied it behind his head. His face was mostly concealed. Teacher, Aunt Gue, I will return alone after the competition. You don an Oppo's have to worry about me. This way I won an Oppo's be exposed, Tang-san said. Wang Yanfeng thought for a moment and said, go ahead, but be careful. Are you planning to enter the battles of the 3rd or 4th Order? If it and Oppo's the 3rd Order, you can hide your strength better and you probably won an Oppo's be discovered. Tang-san replied, I will be going for the 4th Order. The rewards are better there. Teacher, I and Oppo's am off. With these words, he crouched down and disappeared into the crowd behind him. Are you really letting him participate? Gue asked incredulously, looking at Wang Yanfeng. And what about the 4th Order? Does he really have the strength of a 4th Order demon? Wang Yanfeng nodded and said, Tang-san honestly defies common sense. He might be only 9, but he is much more mature than my other students. Even though he has only studied with me for a year, He always gives me the impression that whatever he does with certainty. He must have his own plan. Over the past year, he had been teaching Tang San and the other four all manners of knowledge, so it wasn't like Tang San knew everything. However, it was thanks to what Tang San had taught him that his own strength had significantly improved, and he was now on the verge of breaking through to the fifth order. All this in just 1 year. He could never have imagined something like that. Thus, his feelings for Tang San and the other four children naturally differed. He was also aware of Tang San and Appo's advancement to the fourth order. 9 years old at the fourth order. Except for the demon races naturally born at higher levels, he couldn't think of any race that had such an advancement speed. Obviously, he had never seen a 9-year-old wind wolf reach the fourth order either. Tang San, a human child with the wind wolf transformation, actually surpassed the wind wolf clan's own younglings. For a vassal race, such a situation was by and large impossible, which showed just how extraordinary Tang San and Appo's talent was. Even Wang Yanfeng himself did not fully understand the extent of his disciple and Appo's strength. Recently, Tang San had hardly participated in practical combat classes. Today, with Tang San actively requesting to join the collision contest, which did not necessarily pose a great danger to him, Wang Yanfeng wanted to see just how far Tang San could go. Tang San weaved through the crowd, having just figured out the reward rules of the big contest. No matter the level of the competition, a single victory would earn an Etherhorn coin. This didn't mean much for a rich demon clan, but to a vassal like him, this reward was simply astronomical. Thus, when he reached the registration area, he noticed several humans and members of other vassal races signing up. They were all aiming to win a battle and secure an Etherhorn coin. Only the final champion could obtain the Naturi coin in each level of the competition. The higher the order, the greater the reward in Naturi coins. In addition, the winners could actually choose Naturi coins that matched their elemental attributes. However, the main reason for Tang San and Appo's participation in the contest wasn't in Appo's actually the Etherhorn coins and not even the Naturi coins. More importantly, he wanted to seize the opportunity to absorb the bloodline powers of other demon races, transforming them into bloodline imprints. This would enhance his cultivation of the mysterious heaven technique, and also grant him a number of other abilities. Different skills had different uses, and the innate abilities of other demon races had their own power. The more abilities he had, the stronger his control would naturally become. For instance, the wind blade brought by his wind wolf bloodline was around the fourth order in power right now. At the same time, the leopard flash of the flash leopard race was only at the third order, barely reaching the fourth order. After all, Zhu Jiesin had been seriously injured when he had encountered Tang San, and his bloodline power had been weakened. These bloodline imprints could evolve by devouring more of the same type of ability, which Tang San was perfectly sure of after experimenting on the wind wolves. Therefore, his primary purpose in participating was to devour the bloodline powers of his opponents and hopefully leave this arena much stronger than he had entered it. The third order competition had already begun as Tang San queued up to register. Being short in stature and surrounded by taller folks, he couldn't and Appo's see what was happening inside. However, he could hear the cheers and the heavy sounds of collision. The tournament was fast-paced, with participants accelerating, clashing, and colliding to determine the victor. The winners could then choose whether to proceed to the next round. Despite the numerous vassals and demons registering, the process was surprisingly quick. When Tang San and Appo's turn came, he couldn't and Appo's help but be speechless. The registration method was almost too simple. There were number plates on the table, indicating the order. Contestants just needed to pick up a number plate to enter the competition. No further registration was required. After all, this was just a recreational contest among the demons, limited to those below the sixth order, so naturally there weren't and Appo's many rules in place. There wasn't and Appo's even a staff member present at the place for collecting number plates. Anyone could just take one. The only hard rule was that once you had a number plate, you had to go directly to the queue on the other side. In other words, once you took a number plate, you had to enter the ring. There was no backing out. The Cali guards responsible for maintaining order couldn't and Appo's help but chuckle when they saw Tang San, a small-statured human child, also picking up a number plate. Yet no one stopped him. Tang San didn't have to ask to know what they were thinking. The Kali guards were waiting to see him get battered and broken in the collision. The demons were all extremely tall, and as they surrounded him, his view was blocked all around. These demons didn't oppose. T even noticed the human vassal, who was less than 1.3 meters tall. Their gaze simply didn't oppose. T reached that low. Peeking through the crowd, Tang San looked toward the collision contest arena. The third order competition was still in full swing. The ground was already stained with the blood of an unknown race. A collision had just ended involving a demon, less than 2 meters tall, clearly from the Berserk Bear clan. Seemed that it was a young one. Its opponent was a lizard-like creature. As the two collided, the lizard suddenly dipped down, swiftly turning around, and its tail swept toward the feet of the Berserk Bear. However, the Berserk Bear leaped up when it entered the collision zone, fiercely kicking the lizard with its hind legs and sending it flying out of the ring. It crashed near the spectators and was only stopped by the barrier of the Kali guards. From the sound of the crash, it was obvious that the lizard had suffered a good number of fractures. At the same time, the surrounding demons, especially those from the Berserk Bear clan, cheered loudly. The victor is king. That was the only thing demon clans believed in. This seemingly small bear demon was truly formidable, not just in strength but also in skill. In the following rounds, whether it was a direct confrontation or tactical use of skills, it won by a landslide. Tang San noticed that the young Berserk Bear and Appo's innate ability seemed akin to an explosion of fury. Whenever it exerted its full strength, its body would swell, its fur bristle, and its power visibly increase. Its brown eyes would also turn red. When they collided head-on, a porcupine-like demon was sent flying by a shoulder charge. Although the porcupine and Appo's tusks left 2 wounds on the bear, it was clear that the spiky demon was outmatched in strength. The young Berserk Bear, though only at the 3rd order, had combat power that was no less than that of the 4th order. This disparity between cultivation order and combat power showcased the diversity of talents among different demon species. This contest was Tang San and Appo's first encounter with many types of demons. He carefully observed the abilities of each demon, memorizing their characteristics and analyzing whether these abilities could be helpful to him. He now had a good understanding of how the mysterious heaven technique processed the bloodlines of the demons in this world. But one thing he had been unable to determine was how many bloodlines he could accumulate. In other words, how many demon bloodline imprints could his mysterious heaven technique preserve? Was there a limit? And if there was, would that limit increase with his cultivation? Currently, he has only 2 transformations: Wind Wolf and Flash Leopard. The abilities they brought him were Wind Blade and Leopard Flash. Both abilities were extremely useful, one for speed enhancement and the other for ranged attack. Provided they could be continuously improved, they would be useful for a long time. He indeed believed there had to be a limit to the number of abilities he could absorb. However, he was uncertain of the exact number. He had a vague hypothesis but needed experimentation to prove his guess was correct. The final victor of the 3rd order was this young Berserk Bear. After defeating 10 opponents, it roared continuously in the center of the arena. Ultimately, it chose a Fire Naturi coin, an Earth Naturi coin, and 10 Etherhorn coins as its reward. The Berserk Bear hosting the collision contest lifted the young bear high overhead and stood in the center of the arena, roaring, "This is my son, my son. Do you see? My son, the first of the 3rd order. Roar!" The cheers and roars seemed to make the earth tremble. The vassal races dared not make a sound in the face of such a spectacle, even trembling in fear. Almost all the vassal races participating in the contest were in the 3rd order matches. Tang San saw at least 7 severely injured contestants, with 2 of them in such critical condition that their survival was uncertain. After the 3rd order contest ended, it was time for the 4th order showdown. A robust porcupine demon slowly entered the arena. Its body was covered in iron-black fur, and its head was huge. As it stood about 2 meters tall, its broad back displayed its astonishing strength. 2 thick tusks protruded from its lips, and it roared ferociously. The porcupine clan possessed 2 rare innate abilities. Indeed, not all demon races had just one natural ability. Wang Yanfeng had told him that having multiple abilities didn't necessarily mean greater strength. However, the top-order demons and nymphs typically possessed numerous abilities. The porcupine and Apos' innate abilities were a speed charge and back spikes. The porcupine demons had spikes on their back that could be launched outward. The stronger the porcupine, the more spikes they had on their back. As for the charge, that was pretty self-explanatory. This fourth-order porcupine had 8 spikes on its back. As it took its position on one side of the arena, the 8 spikes slowly rose, angling forward, and its back tensed as if it was ready to launch them at any moment. Tang San had no interest in the porcupine clan and Apos' innate abilities. He had no desire to become a porcupine, whether it involved charging or back spikes. The fourth-order porcupine and Apos' opponent was a flash leopard, and this was Tang San and Apos' first time seeing a member of the flash leopard clan in Today and Apos' collision contest. There had been no flash leopards in the third-order contest. Flash leopards excelled in speed, not head-on collisions, which was why they hadn't and Apos' appeared in the earlier matches. The fourth-order flash leopard that appeared stood at about the same height as the porcupine, but it was far more slender. It was not particularly imposing, but its narrowed eyes shimmered with a sinister light, and its fangs protruded downward. Its rather lean body was brimming with well-toned muscles, displaying a robust vitality. Begin. With the roar of the berserk bear hosting the competition, both sides simultaneously launched their attacks from opposite ends. The flash leopard and Apos' speed was ridiculous. It charged at its opponent like lightning, almost instantly reaching the collision zone. Launching a frenzied charge in turn, the porcupine unleashed all 8 spikes from its back without reservation. When the porcupine demon launched its back spikes, Tang San Kuden and Apos' helped but look at it with newfound respect. The spikes shot by the porcupine were not aimed at the leopard demon but in other directions. Yet, these 8 spikes blocked all possible escape routes for the flash leopard. The porcupine was confident in its frontal charge and Apos' power to crush the flash leopard. However, it feared the flash leopard and Apos' speed. If the flash leopard managed to dodge its head-on charge, the porcupine at full speed would undoubtedly rush too far, losing the match. If the porcupine and the berserk bear represented the power factions in the collision tournament, then the flash leopard represented the speed faction. When power met speed, the natural strategy was first to limit the opponent and Apos' speed. According to the rules, a collision had to occur within 3 seconds of entering the inner circle, after which the winner would be determined. The porcupine and Apos' charge was not at full speed because its thick skin and large body mass were enough to win a frontal collision, even at a reduced speed. The only concern was the opponent and Apos' evasion, but the porcupine had already taken measures by deploying its spikes. The fourth-order flash leopard didn't and Apos' panic facing the 8 spikes. Its forward charge remained incredibly fast. It sprinted straight ahead as if completely unaware of the spikes. It had no reason for concern either. As long as it didn't and Apos' dodge sideways, the spikes wouldn't and Apos' hit it. Both competitors quickly approached the collision circle. Tang San and Apos' eyes shimmered with a purple hue, and the world in his sight slowed down. The porcupine and Apos' tusks were raised, and the flash leopard charging straight ahead glowed with a yellow light. It had just activated its leopard flash ability. Their figures crossed each other in an instant. With a loud bang, the porcupine charged out of the collision circle while the flash leopard leaped straight up, somersaulted in midair, and landed firmly in the circle's center. Without a doubt, the fourth-order flash leopard had won the match. Most demons couldn't and Apos' see what happened in the collision because the flash leopard and Apos' speed was too great. When it won, a chorus of surprised voices erupted. But Tang San had seen everything clearly. Just as they were about to collide, the flash leopard had leapt up in the nick of time, almost grazing the porcupine and Apos' tusks. Then it had fiercely kicked the porcupine and Apos' back with its hind legs. Although the porcupine hadn't charged at the leopard full speed, it had activated its charging ability. It had expected to be able to hit the flash leopard head-on by blocking its evasion path with the back spikes. Yet, the flash leopard had still flown over its head, and the force of the leopard's hind legs, combined with the porcupine's momentum, inevitably pushed the latter out of the collision circle. With that kick, the flash leopard had transformed its forward momentum into upward force, landing in the circle and Appo's center thanks to its incredible body control. The outcome was clear. The porcupine had ultimately lost to speed and technique. Tang San thought that if he were to advise the porcupine, he certainly wouldn't Appo's have let it release its back spikes so early. Instead, it should have released them at the moment of collision. The flash leopard, though swift, would have faced great danger at close range against the sudden spray of back spikes, especially when it could not predict their direction. Being pierced once could be fatal. In other words, the porcupine had yet to fully realize the advantages of its two innate abilities. Meanwhile, the flash leopard excelled in speed, and it had skillful tactics and a calm resolve. It was clear why it had the upper hand. The following battles confirmed Tang San and Appo's assessment of the flash leopard. Consecutive victories ensued, with 3 fourth-order opponents successively defeated by their speed and skills. It and Appo's my turn. I will kill you. A brawny rhino demon with a singular horn on its nose roared at the arena and Appo's edge in the waiting area for competitors. Its forte was its formidable defense as well as its charging ability, just like the porcupine's. Against the astonishingly swift leopard demon, it planned to stay within the collision ring and not leave. No technique would work against it. It was confident that it would defeat its opponent. However, just as it was about to enter, a voice suddenly stopped it from nearby. Wait, it and Appo's not your turn yet. The 3-meter-tall fourth-order rhino demon paused and looked down. Only then did it see a slender figure in front of itself, one it had utterly failed to notice. This slender figure in Appo's face was covered with a cloth, concealing its features. But from the stature and size, it was clear this was a human. This minuscule thing was going to compete? Stop causing trouble, get out of the way, the rhino demon said, waving its large hand to shoo the figure away. But the slender figure had already dashed into the competition field, holding up a number plate. 4th order, contestant 6. Indeed, this was Tang San and Appo's number. He had registered at the earliest opportunity, so among the 4th order competitors, his registration number was 6. The leopard demon had won 4 times, so it was finally Tang San and Appo's turn. The rhino demon had been behind Tang San all this while, and its prominent figure had been focused on the arena, so it had simply not noticed Tang San and Appo's presence. When Tang San entered the field, a wave of astonished murmurs arose. For the demons, the appearance of a human vassal in the collision tournament was not out of the ordinary, but such a tiny figure in the 4th order competition was not something they'd seen before. How did this seemingly frail human muster the courage to enter the arena? And with his face covered at that? Covering the face wasn't an Appo's unusual. Vassals, unlike slaves, didn't and Appo's constantly faced the risk of being killed, but offending a powerful demon could still lead to death. Still, how did he get the courage to come to this arena? The 4th order flash leopard, victorious in 4 consecutive matches, had a fierce glint in its eyes and was licking its sharp fangs. Seeing Tang San and Appo's appearance, the flash leopard was excited. Having defeated 4 opponents in a row had taken its toll. Regarding talent, the flash leopard clan wasn't an Appo's top order, and it knew that it was challenging to sustain 4 rounds. But each additional victory increased its chances of ultimately winning the championship. After all, not every level of competition saw 10 consecutive wins. The higher the order, the lower the likelihood, as everyone in Appo's strength was considerable and the potential for exhaustion or injury during collisions was significant. The arrival of this little human seemed to it not only a way to conserve its strength but also a chance to claim another victory. A most favorable situation. The rhino it had spotted as the opponent for the next match was a formidable demon, and its abilities were a natural counter to the leopard's. The 7th order berserk bear glanced at the flash leopard, then at Tang San, its eyes glittering with a savage light. Tear him apart. Begin. Roar. Tear him apart. After a moment of surprise, the surrounding demons erupted into ear-splitting roars. In their eyes, a mere vassal daring to enter a 4th order arena was an insult. The flash leopard moved, relying not on its abilities but on its sheer speed as it charged straight toward Tang San. Though it was a collision contest, Using its claws to shred its opponent at the moment of impact seemed a trivially easy task. Tang Sen also moved, a green light flowing from his exposed eyes. His body showed little change, but the wind element condensing in the air created a faint green glow around him. Wind? Green light? Is that the wind wolf transformation? The fourth order flash leopard and Appo's eyes had shown disdain in the beginning, but now they showed fury. The wind wolves and the flash leopards had always been mortal enemies. Even if the opponent was just a vassal, he was a vassal of the wind wolf clan, so there was only one way to deal with him. Among the watching demons, there were also naturally members of the wind wolf clan. Seeing that the vassal was one of their own, their first reaction was shame. This was sure to be a loss to the leopard demons, a disgrace to the wind wolf clan. Tang San didn't and Appo's seem as fast as the flash leopard, so when the flash leopard charged into the collision zone, he was still 5 meters away. The flash leopard swept through the zone without using its signature flash, its sharp claws reaching out as it stretched its sleek body. It also opened its mouth wide, thinking of biting the human's head off. In its mind, it had already envisioned the fate of this little human. His arms and chest would be torn by its claws, and his throat pierced by its fangs. Just as the fourth order flash leopard thought it was about to taste the scalding, delicious human blood, it suddenly realized the human was gone. Yes, Tang San had vanished from its sight. Slide and kneel. Tang San used an unusual move. As he charged forward, he leaned back, bent his knees and slid forward close to the ground. The flash leopard and Appo's slender figure simply flew over his head. At that moment, Tang San's eyes turned icy and he suddenly extended both hands up. A closer look would reveal that his skin was now jade-colored, while sharp claws that were actually wind blades had formed between his fingers. As he passed underneath the flash leopard, the demon's underbelly was naturally exposed. With two sharp sounds, Tang San and Appo's hands instantly penetrated the flash leopard and Appo's abdomen. The flash leopard was never known for its defense, especially its abdomen, which was its weakest point. As Tang San and Appo's hands dug into its abdomen, his legs flew upward, wrapping around the leopard and Appo's waist. His slender body continued to slide forward, driven by the momentum of the flash leopard and Appo's charge. The mysterious heaven technique's power was activated, and in a single moment, it devoured all the bloodline power within the flash leopard. His own flash leopard imprint suddenly brightened, and a massive amount of bloodline power surged into his body as the energy of the mysterious heaven technique drew it in. The flash leopard imprint evolved in an instant from third order to fourth order. This breakthrough made Tang San feel as if his body had become lighter. His cultivation of the mysterious heaven technique had also noticeably increased. The moment its abdomen was pierced, the fourth order flash leopard let out a painful wail, but in the next instant its voice abruptly ceased. Its bloodline power was fiercely devoured and gone in an instant. The next moment, the wind blades exploded inside its abdomen. The moment Tang San made his move, he didn't have the slightest intention to let it live. Besides the wind wolves, the flash leopards were the most suitable race for him to devour. But devouring too much would surely alert others, so he couldn't and Appo's take the risk. Only by silencing it could he consume the bloodline power thoroughly. When the watching demons saw the flash leopard pounce and Tang San disappear, their first thought was that Tang San was pinned beneath it, probably crushed to death, and they shouted excitedly. However, the flash leopard and Appo's piercing roar brought them back to reality. The scream abruptly stopped, as if the demon's throat had been seized, and a moment later, blood mixed with entrails spurted out from the fourth order flash leopard. Tang San flipped over the demon and came out from underneath. He shook his hands, flicking off the blood. Silence covered the arena, as if invisible hands had gripped the throats of everyone watching. Tang San stepped into the collision zone, but the fourth order flash leopard lay motionless in a pool of blood. This was a scenario none of the demons had ever imagined. A human, just a little human vassal, had actually killed a fourth order flash leopard? How could this be? Even though the flash leopard had fought 4 consecutive battles and hadn't and Appo's even used its flash skill, how could it die like that? But the reality was right before their eyes. The blood on the slender human and Appo's palms and the blood and ebbing life force still flowing from the flash leopard and Appo's S mouth told them all this was real. Bright lights shone down on that slender figure, who for some unknown reason, seemed to emit a chilling aura. This caused an involuntary shiver among the demons watching. Owa! A sudden wolf howl echoed through the arena. A massive wolf demon towering over 2.5 meters, stepped forward, howling at Tang San. "Well done, haha! Worthy of the bloodline of my Wind Wolf clan!" exclaimed the fifth order Wind Wolf, its eyes blazing with fervor. Had Tang San and Appo's opponent been from another race, even though he had used the Wind Wolf transformation, the Wind Wolf clan wouldn't and Appo's have been so excited. But he had killed a flash leopard, their most hated enemy. So, at this moment the Wind Wolf clan even overlooked the fact that he was just a vassal. The shame became exhilaration. Nothing excited them more than the death of a flash leopard. Roar! A massive flash leopard suddenly sprang up, charging straight at Tang San in the collision circle. This flash leopard was speedy, and its figure disappeared in midair with a flash of yellow light as it activated its flash ability. It appeared almost instantaneously in front of Tang San. Its speed was incomparably greater than the fourth order flash leopards. The fifth order Wind Wolf who had just praised Tang San was startled, but it realized that it was too late to intervene. Suddenly, a gigantic hand appeared out of nowhere and fiercely struck the lightning-fast figure. With a loud bang, the flash leopard lunging at Tang San was smacked away, crashing violently into a group of demons. A 7-order berserk bear, towering over 4 meters, stood beside Tang San, its eyes gleaming fiercely as its enormous paw slowly came down. A defeat is a defeat. Rules are rules. If you want revenge, wait until after the contest. Tang San silently withdrew his right foot that had already stepped forward. He had been ready to launch his ghost shadow perplexing track, even preparing to use the flash if need be. The one who had suddenly ambushed him was a 5th order flash leopard. Facing such a swift opponent, he wasn't Appo's entirely confident that he could get away without using his full abilities. However, the intervention of the 7th order berserk bear resolved the crisis for him. Wang Yanfeng and Gue Gue, watching from a distance, had their hearts in their throats. Gue Gue turned to Wang Yanfeng, gripping his arm so tightly that her nails dug into his skin. "Brother, is this the disciple you trained? Since when could you train such monsters?" A 4th order flash leopard, 4th order. To participate in the collision contest was one thing, but to kill a 4th order flash leopard in one encounter? Was this something a human vassal could do? Wang Yanfeng and Appo's gaze was vacant as he murmured, "What is going on? Who is this kid?" Meanwhile, the human standing at the center of the arena looked up at the colossal 7th order berserk bear and asked, "Will the match continue?" His voice carried a hint of youthful naivety. Clearly, he was not an adult. The 7th order berserk bear lowered its head, and atop its shoulder, the young berserk bear, recent champion of the 3rd order collision contest, also gazed at him curiously. Tang San took a deep breath, feeling the surging energy within him and activating the mysterious heaven technique as his next opponent entered the arena. The Rhino Demon. Yes, it was precisely the one who had just missed seeing Tang San, thinking it was its turn to compete. The arena, now quieted under the suppression of the 7th order berserk bear, watched as the flash leopard, previously flung away, rose and stared intently at Tang San. In Today and Appo's collision competition, the 4th order flash leopard that just died was the first casualty among the demons. As for the deaths of vassals in the earlier competitions, they couldn't care less. A vassal of the Wind Wolf clan had just killed a 4th order flash leopard. The defeat was an absolute disgrace for the flash leopard clan. A lower order flash leopard had already left to relay the message. At this moment, Tang San had no time to concern himself with what the flash leopard clan thought. Still, Wang Yanfeng and Gue Gue were beginning to understand the purpose of his masked appearance. The Rhino Demon let out a deep roar. It dropped down on all fours, and its right hind leg scraped at the ground as the aura around it grew increasingly dense. A dark yellow light radiated from it. This was the Rhino Demon and Appo's forte, the Ironhide Shield. In terms of defense, the Rhino clan was undoubtedly among the top in the demon clans. Races capable of a head-on collision with a Rhino Demon were few. Due to his ridiculous mass and defense, this 4th order Rhino Demon was a favorite among the 4th order competitors today. The rhino demon suddenly roared to the sky and its hooves smashed the ground as it charged fiercely toward Tang San. Its horn was radiating a blinding light. Tang San also charged forward. His speed appeared no different from when he charged at the flash leopard, and his body was still enveloped in a green light, exhibiting the unique aura of the wind wolves. As they rapidly closed in, Tang San suddenly raised his hand, and two green wind blades shot toward the rhino demon. The wind blades drew two beautiful arcs in the air. The rhino demon only saw the green light flicker in his opponent's hand, and then the wind blades seemed to fly off course to either side. But just as it wondered what was going on, a bright green light exploded in its eyes. Tang San had judged his opponent's speed and position perfectly, and the trajectory of the wind blades set them to hit the rhino's eyes perfectly. At this moment, both were about to enter the collision circle. The rhino demon snorted coldly and its limbs abruptly turned. It slid directly toward the collision circle, and at the same time it swiftly closed its eyes. It didn't and Appo's. T believed that Tang San and Appo's wind blades could penetrate its iron-hide shield. Even though its eyelids were in fact one of the most vulnerable parts of its body, even that skin was still not something just anyone could penetrate. But the rhino demon didn't and Appo's. T know that Tang San was waiting precisely for this moment, the moment it closed its eyes. The two wind blades struck its eyelids, and while the defense of the iron-hide shield did indeed withstand the attack, the rhino demon couldn't and Appo's. T helped but feel a piercing pain. It roared out in anger again. What it couldn't see was that Tang San had already leaped into the air. The spectators noticed that he now held a wind blade, and it was apparent to anyone with good eyesight that the wind element was rapidly converging toward that wind blade. Before their eyes, the greenish-blue wind blade quickly turned dark green. The rhino demon squinted in pain. It tilted its head back and shook it, but it needed time to regain its vision. It could only rely on memory to move inside the collision circle. Tang San and Appo's slender figure descended from the air, lightly landing on the raised head of the rhino demon and thrusting the dark green wind blade toward its eye. Simultaneously, his other hand struck the top of the rhino demon and Appo's head. At a closer look, it was visible that this dark green wind blade was about to puncture the rhino's demon eyelid. Its iron-hide shield's defense was formidable compared to any other fourth-order demons, but it was still nothing more than a fourth-order demon itself. The shield barely covered its whole body, merging with its tough hide. Not only was it stretched thin, but it also wasn't an Appo's capable of releasing external energy. On the other hand, Tang San and Appo's wind blade was made of incredibly compressed wind elemental energy. Its entire power was focused in a single point, and it targeted the rhino's most vulnerable spot. The wind blade shattered almost immediately, dissipating into specks of green light. But the rhino demon let out an almost insane scream of pain. Its upper body reared up, and it no longer cared about the collision contest. The next moment, it darted out wildly on all fours, swinging its head frantically, wanting to use its most potent attack to smash the opponent into a pulp. Of course, by this time, Tang San had already lightly sprung up from its head, landing steadily in the center of the collision zone. No one noticed that the palm he had placed on the rhino demon and Appo's head had flashed with a yellow light. Energy from the mysterious heaven technique surged within him, allowing him to quickly recover from the expenditure of using the wind blade. He was secretly quite surprised. He had not held back with that wind blade strike at all. Although it wasn't an Appo's his most potent ability, he considered its penetrative power quite formidable. Yet, he had been unable to fully pierce through. The fourth-order rhino demon's eyes were injured, one of them severely so, but it was probably not permanent. The fact that he had been unable to stab it in the eye showed how strong the iron-hide shield's defense was. In the meantime, the seventh-order berserk bear and Appo's huge paw fiercely reached out, grabbing the horn of the rhino demon that was madly charging toward the crowd. With a roar, it suddenly lifted the robust rhino demon over its head with a single hand. Then it slammed the rhino hard onto the ground, knocking it unconscious. Worthless. Take it away. Can and Appo's. Do you even defeat a vassal? The seventh-order berserk bear said disdainfully, with a hint of anger. 2 consecutive victories. Using skillful tactics, Tang San had defeated a fourth-order flash leopard, and a fourth-order rhino demon. However, the more powerful demons could tell it wasn't an Appos. Just about skills. His timing and composure were vital in overcoming his opponents. Gue was now truly at a loss for words. If during the first battle she had been deeply concerned about Tang San and Appos' safety, now she just wanted to ask Wang Yanfeng, "Where did you find this little demon? The Wind Wolf clan and Appos' wind blade? Is it just a simple wind blade?" In fourth order, no less. She knew Tang San and Appos' actual age. A 9-year-old at the fourth order. What an extraordinary talent! At least in the human world, she had never heard of such a being. Wang Yanfeng and Appos' eyes sparkled with admiration. He had always known that Tang San was strong. A year ago, when Tang San was only at the third order, Wang Yanfeng suffered a defeat at his hands. But even he hadn't an Appos. Expected Tang San to be this powerful. It was an utterly unforeseen strength. Come on. With a ferocious roar, Tang San and Appos' third opponent entered the arena. Compared to the previous rhino demon, this opponent was much smaller in stature. It had a slender figure, standing at only 1.5 meters tall, but it had wings on its back. The wingspan was actually greater than the demon's height, at around 2 meters. Its elongated eyes gleamed with a sharp light. If Tang San remembered correctly, this wasn't an Appos. The contestant lined up behind him earlier. In other words, someone had been moved up in the queue. Moved up in the queue to counter him? This contestant was probably a member of a Falcon Demon clan. Undoubtedly, through these two battles, the demons had realized that his agility and martial skills were superior. Clumsier demons were at a disadvantage against him. So they brought forth this Falcon Demon with flying abilities, great speed, and skills to counter him. Being consecutively defeated by a vassal humiliated the demons participating in the collision contest. Tang San didn't an Appos. Need to think much to understand what these demons were up to. A Falcon Demon, huh? Well, that was a white-crested Falcon Demon. A species rare among demon clans, known for its fast flight speed and great endurance in the air. Its combat power wasn't an Appos. Overwhelming, but its flying and scouting abilities were excellent. Its keen vision could catch the slightest changes from 10 miles away, making it the best scout among the demons. The white-crested Falcon Demon was signaled to enter by higher-order demons, specifically to counter Tang San and Appos' agility. Actual members of the Wind Wolf clan Wuden and Appos' fear the white-crested Falcon Demon. They had extremely tough physiques and a very potent wind blade. However, Tang San was just a human. In the eyes of the demons, his slender physique made him fast, but he had to be significantly weaker in defense. Deploying the white-crested Falcon Demon, which excelled in speed and observation skills, against him Kuden and Appos' be more appropriate. In other words, the demons mainly attributed the death of the previous Flash Leopard to its carelessness. At the command of the 7th Order Berserk Bear, the white-crested Falcon Demon flapped its wings vigorously, soaring into the sky in the blink of an eye. Its eyes shimmered with a swirling white light as it activated its bloodline ability, the Falcon Eye focusing intently on Tang San. The whole world beneath its gaze slowed down, and every detail of that slow world lay bare. Under the Falcon Eye of the white-crested Falcon Demon, even the most subtle of Tang San's muscle movements could be captured, down to the frequency of his trembling eyelashes. Under its watchful eye, Tang San stood still, not charging forward but simply letting his arms hang naturally at his sides, his fingertips flickering with a green light. The white-crested Falcon Demon had already soared 100 meters high. The next moment it dove down rapidly. Its wings suddenly folded, and only the tips protruded slightly outward. By adjusting the angle of these tips, it could control the direction and speed of its dive. This maneuverability in flight was its forte. It was always searching for Tang San and Appos' weaknesses, and the moment it identified one, its Falcon Eye would lock onto it, ensuring a decisive strike. In its eyes, Tang San was already a dead man. At that moment, Tang San finally moved, his toes pushing hard against the ground as he swiftly charged towards the collision zone. Simultaneously, he lifted his head to look at the white-crested Falcon Demon in the air. Their eyes met, and he saw the white light in the eyes of the white-crested Falcon Demon. At the same time, the demon saw a hint of purple in Tang San and Appos' eyes. That faint shade of purple, fleeting as it was, caused the white-crested falcon demon to experience a momentary blankness, as if something had struck its soul, plunging it into a brief state of confusion. Almost immediately after entering the collision zone, Tang San sprang up, swinging his arms. He flung 2 wind blades from his hands, aiming straight at the white-crested falcon demon in the sky. The momentary daze of the white-crested falcon demon was just that, momentary, but the imprint of those purple eyes remained etched in its mind. As it regained a bit of clarity, the sharp wind blades, accompanied by a silent green glow, were already upon it. True to its reputation as the demon clan best at dodging, the white-crested falcon demon swiftly twisted in midair, narrowly avoiding the 2 approaching wind blades. Its talons sprang out and its wings flared wide to control its descent. It was only then that it noticed the other 2 wind blades coming at it. That momentary daze had cost it the tactical advantage. Startled, it stretched its talons to grab the wind blades, thinking of ascending again afterward. But since Tang San had already unleashed his purple extreme demon eye, he wouldn't and oppose. Grant it such an opportunity again. The 2 wind blades that had missed their target in the air quietly circled back, approaching from behind, while the 2 blades about to be caught by the talons exploded. The 2 wind blades split into 4, accelerating instantly and slashing across the slender body of the white-crested falcon demon. Although its feathers helped block the attack, everyone participating was at the 4th order, and among its peers, the white-crested falcon was by far not famous for its defense. The sharpness of the wind blades was not that easily resisted, and blood burst out instantly. The 2 blades that had circled back also ruthlessly slashed the white-crested falcon demon and Oppo's back, eliciting a scream as it plummeted toward the ground. Tang San, leaping into the air, reached out with both hands. One grasped the slender neck of the white-crested falcon demon, and the other its chest. Twirling in midair, he flung the demon away. With a thud, the white-crested falcon demon hit the ground, blood flowing from a number of deep cuts. It had been knocked unconscious by the fall. Tang San took a deep breath, landing steadily in the collision zone. 3 consecutive victories. What's going to happen in the 3rd round if the first victory was luck and the second was finding a weakness? The way the demons on site looked at this human vassal began to change. Since when could a human vassal possess such combat experience and capabilities? The white-crested falcon demon had been explicitly chosen to counter him, yet it had failed miserably, unable to dodge the wind blades. All the demons saw was the white-crested falcon demon and Oppo's mistake, but they didn't and Oppo's understand the reason behind it. The 7th Order Berserk Bear frowned as it watched Tang San quietly walk to the side of the arena, preparing for the next match. Even so, it didn't even bat an eye as it called out to the stands. Rules are rules, and although the demon clans lived by the law of the jungle, the survival of the fittest, and the supremacy of strength, they also had their hierarchy and rules, especially in the central city. Thus, even though Tang San was just a vassal, in this collision tournament, the demon clans who wanted to deal with him could only do so according to the rules. They could not gang up on him, and they could not send higher order members to bully him. Just a mere transformation into an ordinary wind wolf, yet he possesses such combat skills and luck? Tang San and Oppo's 4th opponent had already entered the arena, the one he had been supposed to face in the previous match. After the white-crested falcon demon and Oppo's defeat, the order of opponents continued as scheduled. This opponent was a deer demon. It had large, forked antlers atop its head and a muscular build. Unlike most demons, its gaze lacked ferocity, instead emanating peace and calm. As it watched Tang San, a faint glimmer twinkled deep within its eyes. Its coat was quite peculiar, a pale blue dotted with tufts of white. Tang San and Oppo's mind stirred. Is this the other horned deer demon? Tang San recalled what Wang Yanfeng had detailed about this type of deer demon. They were truly unique. Blue fur was extremely rare among demonkind as a whole, and even more so among deer demons. Deer demons were numerous, a mid-level race among demons. The other horned deer demons Warren and Oppo's royalty of their kind, and neither were they particularly strong. However, their innate abilities were quite extraordinary. Their innate ability was known as the discerning heart and Oppo's gaze. Just like the name suggested, it was an incredible perception ability. The discerning heart in Appo's gaze could see many things invisible to other races. They could even sense fortune, misfortune, and the presence of treasures, which meant that this ability was much less connected to eyesight than it was to an extremely high spiritual power. The Etherhorn metal, used to create Etherhorn coins, had been discovered by the Etherhorn Deer Demon clan. The most significant benefit of these coins was that carrying them helped maintain mental focus and enhance cultivation. After the Etherhorn Deer Demons discovered this metal, it had been later minted into coins named after them. Thus, even though Etherhorn Deer Demons were few in number, their status among demonkind actually surpassed Deer Demons and Appo's royal lineage. They were also not particularly strong in combat, yet they were warmly welcomed into any demon clan. Many prominent demon families included members of the Etherhorn Deer Demon lineage. Tang San had never expected that he would stumble upon an Etherhorn Deer Demon in this collision contest. The eyes of the Etherhorn Deer Demon glowed with a faint blue halo, and when its gaze fixed on Tang San, he felt as if he was being seen through. But in the next moment, a hint of confusion flashed in the eyes of the Deer Demon. It used its discerning heart and Appo's gaze on Tang San, partly to find his flaws and partly to sense his uniqueness. It could sense Tang San and Appo's robust vitality far beyond what his slender frame suggested. At the same time, it felt unease, as if something about this young man was particularly disconcerting. This made the usually calm Etherhorn Deer Demon somewhat restless. "Begin!" roared the Seventh Order Berserk Bear. The Etherhorn Deer Demon wasn't actually here because it was adept at combat by any standard. Its participation in the contest was merely for fun. Actually, the reason these demons often encountered danger was precisely this unstoppable curiosity, which was why most sought the protection of stronger races to live more safely. This time, Tang San made the first move, and he swiftly charged toward the Etherhorn Deer Demon. The Deer Demon lowered its head slightly and charged straight at Tang San. At that moment, it sensed that the human vassal bore no ill intention. The collision would be safe. The distance between them rapidly closed. The Etherhorn Deer Demon and Appo's charge was straightforward and powerful. Still, its combat strength was not on the same level as the previous three contestants. It was just there to make up the numbers and enjoy itself. So, after the previous three battles, no one believed that the Etherhorn Deer Demon could win against this somewhat magical human vassal of the Wind Wolf clan. As they quickly approached each other, Tang San suddenly leaped up just before the collision. He positioned himself right in front of the Deer Demon, which felt like something had caught hold of its antlers. In the next instant, Tang San was above it, one hand pressing on its head. The Etherhorn Deer Demon suddenly felt an intense fear, and almost instinctively shook its head hard. Surprisingly, that instinctive motion actually flung Tang San far away. The deer also stumbled and nearly fell, its heart filled with fear. It barely managed to steady itself, and it felt incredibly bewildered. Tang San somersaulted backward in the air and landed some distance away, then staggered back a few steps before finally steadying himself. Meanwhile, the Etherhorn Deer Demon had reached the center of the collision area. Looking more and more dazed, it straightened up and pointed to its nose with its forelimb, blinking in confusion. "I won." The Seventh Order Berserk Bear was also astonished. The expected winner had been flung away, and the underdog had won? Since when were Etherhorn Deer Demons this powerful? Did he fling that human away just like that? Or is it that the human exhausted himself too much to continue? As the demons spectating the match gaped in astonishment at the Etherhorn Deer Demon, Tang San swiftly made his way to the prize table, grabbed 3 Etherhorn coins, and quickly disappeared into the crowd. The demons who noticed him darting through the crowd tried to catch him, curious to see the face behind his mask. However, they soon realized that this slim human slipped through the crowd like a fish, vanishing in just a few moments. His ghost shadow perplexing track proved to be a particularly useful tool in this densely crowded space. Win 3 matches and lose to the Etherhorn Deer Demon. I'll take that. Time to be off. Seeing Tang San and Appo's sudden loss and quick departure, Wang Yanfeng and Guigui breathed a sigh of relief. Not daring to watch any longer, they quickly retreated, blending into the crowd and hastening away. Naturally, the rest of the demons were still engaged in the collision contest. Aside from the Flash Leopard clan and Appo's rage and the Wind Wolf clan and Appo's excitement. However, the other demons didn't and Appo's show much reaction. Tang San accelerated as soon as he left the crowd. His memory was excellent, so he could easily recall the way he had come. He didn't and Appo's seek out Gue or Wang Yanfeng, but instead navigated through streets and alleys, sticking to the darker corners, and headed straight back to the small inn. Less than a minute after his departure, several flash leopards emitting yellow light streaked past where he had been. Their noses twitched as they sniffed around, trying to catch his scent and track him down. Of course, their efforts were in vain. Tang San simply needed to do one thing to conceal his scent: change his Wind Wolf bloodline imprint, which had been used to cast the Wind Blade, into a flash leopard bloodline imprint. With his bloodline altered, how could they possibly identify his scent? Continuing the contest could undoubtedly bring more victories. For fourth-order demons, winning against Tang San in a contest focused on skill and strength was no easy feat. However, Tang San and Appo's performance today was relatively restrained. Otherwise, if he had given it his all, neither the white-crested falcon nor the rhino demon would have survived. During his third match, he had noticed some flash leopards leaving the arena, obviously intending to stir up trouble. His main goal had been achieved, so why linger any longer? Using his loss to the Etherhorn deer demon as cover, he had quickly escaped. As he swiftly departed, on the watch for any danger that might arise from behind, a slight smirk formed at the corner of Tang San and Appo's mouth. Done. Today and Appo's objective has been accomplished. At the inn, Tang San quickly returned to his room, removed his mask, and looked out the window. Before long, Wang Yanfeng and Gue also returned. They almost immediately came to Tang San and Appo's room. As soon as they entered, before Gue could say anything, Tang San handed her an Etherhorn coin. "Aunt Gue, this is for you." Gue was startled. Her small and usually accommodated human vassals, each poorer than the last, often not paying. It was rare to receive even a demon's hard coin in good condition, let alone an exquisitely crafted Etherhorn coin. As she received it, the words of reproach that had reached her lips were immediately swallowed back. Then Tang San offered a coin to his teacher as well. Wang Yanfeng took the Etherhorn coin, but his mouth was twitching slightly. "You were quite bold to kill that flash leopard." Tang San and Appo's face showed a trace of fear. "I didn't and Appo's intend to kill it. I just raised my hand. And things happened. Teacher, there one and Appo's be any trouble will there?" Seeing the fear on his face, Wang Yanfeng and Appo's expression relaxed slightly. A 9-year-old killing a demon was certainly strange, but a 9-year-old remaining perfectly calm after killing a living being would have been downright frightening. "Fortunately, you ran fast. By the time we left, there were already quite a few leopard demons around," Wang Yanfeng said, still somewhat shaken. Tang San asked, "Will this bring trouble to other human vassals?" Wang Yanfeng shook his head. "No, that one and Appo's happen. Different vassals belong to different clans. They naturally have their clans to protect them. When we left the arena, the flash leopard and wind wolves were already butting heads. After all, the conflict is between those two races to begin with. It has nothing to do with us. That and Appo's good." Tang San sighed in relief.